All right, George.
Yo. Welcome, guys. Welcome. We are back for episode 72 of the Locked In podcast. What's going on, everybody? I am your host, GMAC88, aka G Money, aka George M. And I got my main here, my main guy on the trigger. What's up, Steve? How you doing, bro?
What's going on, man? I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's a nice little Thursday afternoon. And today, guys, as announced, and as a lot of guys watching see this, we have a guy back here, a good friend of ours. He's returning for actually the third episode, but technically the second one, just us and him. And we got here my man, Dan Kanagie, aka Coach Dan. What's up, Dan?
What's going on, man? How you doing, guys?
We're in here, man.
Good,
Just
Good.
living the dream, bro. We're glad to have you back, man. We appreciate you coming back to the podcast after about a year or so.
Thanks for having me back. I appreciate being here.
No problem
Yes,
at all, man.
you
No
know it.
problem.
So, guys, today's topic is going to be actually a couple things. We're going to talk and get into more than one particular thing, but the main topic will be bare knuckle boxing as well as pugilism and kind of like the history behind the art and behind some very famous fights, events, etc. in history. We'll be talking a little bit about just in general, just a little bit of world history and some, I guess, American history as well, you could say. And we'll be touching a little bit on the conflict between the Ukraine and Russia that's been ongoing for some time, quite honestly, but also it kind of like just exploded in the last maybe 2 weeks or so or a month or so as far as like what we see right now. And we'll kind of dive into that and a couple other big topics that are important that we kind of think are important to talk about, as well as we talk a little about other stuff from around the world and some events that we'll be seeing on the news. So without further ado, Steve, you want to go ahead and play our intro as usual and then set this up and we get this thing started?
Sounds good. See you on the other side, man.
See you soon.
Push it to the limit. Walk along the razor's edge. Don't look down, just keep your head or you'll be finished. Open up the limit. Past the point of no return. Reach the top, but still you gotta learn how to keep it. Hit the wheel and double the stakes. Throttle wide open like a bat out of hell. You crash the gate. Going for the back of beyond. Nothing gonna stop you. There's nothing that's strong. So close now, you're nearly at the brink. So push it. Ooh, yeah. Welcome to the limit. Take it maybe one step more. Our game's still playing, so you better win it.
All right, guys. What's up? Like George said, welcome back to the Locked In Podcast, episode 72 tonight. As always, we're your host in the building, and obviously we're featured by special guest Dan Kanagie, who's returning to the podcast. Tonight, we're going to be talking about, like George said, the topic. We're going to talk about the history of bare knuckle boxing. We'll get into that. Dan has a lot of expertise on that. We're also going to talk about the current world events. Particularly, there's a lot of different things going on right now, but one of the big ones is the war between Russia and Ukraine. Which, like George said, it's been. I mean, like a lot of like the conflict's been going on for a little bit, but obviously right now, like just recently, like a kind of war is kind of broken out. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. George, you want to lead in tonight, man? And,
Yeah, sure. I'll lead a little bit, then I'll have Dan, obviously, join in with the bare knuckle. So we'll start with you guys want to start with the bare knuckle a little bit, and then we kind of go into everything else, or talk about what's going on in the world at first. How you guys want to start? It doesn't really matter. I mean, either
I'm
or.
fine with that.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about bare knuckle boxing and some of the history. I know I've been waiting for this for a while. I'm sure Dan has got a lot to say. So we talk about the history of some American combat sports / fighting styles, as well as bare knuckle boxing, which was one of the original ones. And I mean, when you think about bare knuckle boxing, it's a lot of countries, might say that like it came from here, from there. But in America, we were definitely one of the first, countries at the time to, have a bare knuckle boxing, as well as, at catch wrestling, and then kind of like jump in this one. Their history kind of definitely relates a little bit. So, Dan.
Yeah, it's I tell you, it's creation. It's an English thing. Um, in the early 1700s in London, and like with almost everything else in U.S. history, came out. So boxing in America, I mean, we can trace it all the way back as far back as the about the mid 1700s is when we actually started of competitions between people. It's a lot of slave marrying slaves against each other for gambling, or a private a private way of settling a matter of honor, something along those lines. It's not until about what was it, 1815, 1816, around then, off the top of my head, 1817, when you have this guy, Jacob Heyer, who's of Dutch immigrant. His parents were Dutch immigrants. And he was born and raised in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, wound up moving to Manhattan. This guy, he was literally born the same year Uncle was born.
Same year as who?
He grew Jacob Heyer.
Yeah, Jacob Heyer. Okay.
Like I said, Jacob Heyer. So he grew in America. So like the war of 1812 was his generation. And he was a butcher in Manhattan. And it starts with an altercation that he has on the street with a British sailor right after the War of 1812. Like directly after the war, America restarted trade with England, basically because we had to. We needed the money. And so these English sailors who, for a number of years were not allowed, all of a sudden were. And so you get these guys that we just fought a war with, and walking around. I can just picture, this young American and this British sailor walking. Words were said, and they agreed to settle this personal affair with their hands.
Yeah, the old way,
which had been done before. Yeah, it's the old way. It had been done before, and they agreed to do it for a purse, which had also been done before. That was also not new.
Fighting for money, for prizes, right?
Right. But what made this different, what made this fight in particular different and marked it from all the others before it, is that people, for some reason, and we don't know why, cared enough to write it down, to write about it, to document it. They sold tickets. There was a purse. There were rules. This was the first time all of that had been done together. And like I said, it was just this fight between this grudge between this American butcher and this British sailor. And it gave birth to something that we like I said, with a lot of other things, was born in England, and we took it and we made it our own. We put our own twist on it, and made it something uniquely American. And it all started with this one event. The fight didn't last that long. It actually ended in a draw, and both of Jacob Heyer's forearms were broken.
Wow.
He technically wasn't even the winner of the fight. He didn't lose, but he really didn't either. But that was it. That was the last time that happened. It was like almost like a one done thing. Everybody kind of went back to the way things were before. Slowly, you start to see, match popping up. And you had different, and by this point in history in the U.S., you had different types. You actually had different types. You had these guys that were what are referred to as the professors. These guys were fence masters who included boxing lessons as a means of teaching people for self-defense on the street. So these guys wanted a more higher crust, a wealthier customer, somebody who wasn't going to be fighting for money. But then you had these itinerant teachers, these guys that would go to a town, set up shop for a couple months, teach some people, and then pick up stakes, move to a new town, and do it all over again. And in the middle, they would pick up fights. So these guys were different in that they taught the bare knuckle to people for the self-defense, same as the professors, but these guys actually fought. They did it as well as taught. But they had three guys. Okay, you had these guys that learned to fight and on the streets. New York, Philly, Boston, the three major Northeast cities were dangerous back then.
Oh yeah.
You had criminals. You had gangs, and they weren't like the gangs you think of today. They're organized like you would think of today. But there was
like gangs in New York almost, right? Like kind of like that kind of scene, like the gangs in New York type of era.
That, though, not quite that. Yeah, not quite
before that. Okay, so way
that
back.
actually comes up soon. But you had these guys like Tom Heyer who settled things with their fists. They weren't classic trained. They weren't teachers. They weren't professors. They were lower class working men. So that you had these three tiers at the time. But things really, start to see. This was the Jacob Heyer fight was the match that lit the fuse. And from 1850 till 1840, you have this long wick burning, and this whole this subculture starting to formulate, and it was centering around New York, Philadelphia, somewhat Boston,
right? The East Coast area, right? Like, what about down south? Did they have a lot of bare knuckles guys down south?
Not really, no. That was a different culture. Up north here was a more industrial type of culture. As down south was more of an agricultural. The down south time period still had an aristocracy. They had a class system. As opposed to up north that had a class system, but we didn't really have the aristocracy that they did down south. The Southern gentlemen that they talk about. Up north, it was merchants. It was laborers. Skilled workers. But like I said, it wasn't until 1840 that it really kicked off. And this is actually where we get into the whole gangs in New York thing, because that movie, that history that movie drew upon, is so intertwined with the history of bare knuckle boxing. The history, like I love telling people, the history of politics, law enforcement, fire departments, and street gangs, and boxing.
Right.
Those
Wow.
5 things are so intertwined. And I mean, it's crazy how you're going to see. So we talked about Jacob Heyer in 1841. Well, in 1840, you had this immigrant. He was an immigrant who came from Britain, and his Yankee Sullivan. And this guy's got a colorful history unto himself, but he really didn't become somebody of note until he landed in America. Until he landed in Philadelphia, made his way to New York, opened a saloon. And he already had a history. He had done a number of fights in England, Australia, before he came to reputation as an Irishman. So at this time period, you have these guys like the Hires, who were, like I said, Jacob Heyer was born the same year America was.
1776,
So,
correct? He was born 1776.
Well, no, he was born in 1889 or 1789, which the end of the Revolutionary War.
Towards the end of the war, yeah.
While we declared our independence in 76, it didn't mean anything until we won the war. So he was born the year the war ended, and he grew up with America. His son was, this what they themselves called Native Americans. Okay, today we know them nothings. In the movie Gangs in New York, you have the character Bill the Butcher, played by Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah, Bill the
That
Butcher.
character is based off of a real person, William Poole. William Poole and Jacob Heyer's son, Tom Heyer, were best friends. They worked as butchers together.
Interesting, huh?
Okay. So these guys, they guys are also members of the Bowery Boys, which is a notorious street gang in New York City that goes all the way back, like almost to Jacob. These guys were political enforcers. They worked for the political machine of New York, guaranteeing politicians the votes. They were also volunteer firemen. So you see how these things become all intertwined. You have this immigrant Yankee Sullivan, who the Irish took on as a hero. They took this guy and made him their own. And in 1841, Tom Heyer and Yankee Sullivan, they wind up having a fight. And they do it because Yankee comes from England, and he fought under the prize ring rules and in the London prize ring. And from that background, that's how they went. That's how they did it. They used the London prize ring. They all everything set out. They sold tickets and had an audience. Now, granted, it was illegal, and so they had to do all this one step ahead of the police. It's actually held down in Maryland on an island, Maryland, and the police were so close to them that I believe Yankee Sullivan was actually climbing out the back window as the police were coming in the front door to arrest him. He went out the back window, down, into a boat and took off. You know, like they had to be that they were that close to them.
Right. It was considered illegal then, by the way, because I read somewhere that
Umpire-
bare knuckle boxing was never really like illegal, right? In America in those years, like it
Never.
was considered illegal,
No,
right?
it was never legal. Boxing, and it wasn't that bare knuckle boxing was illegal. That was illegal. Basically, prize fight, all prize fighting,
Right.
was illegal. You know, so any kind of fighting for money was against the law. Boxing in particular, because it was, you know, it was something that you could easily point at and say that's brutal. Look at the damage these guys, you know, that these guys take.
Especially in those days, it was a little different now.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there is an glove boxing is more dangerous. That the gloves actually add more damage.
Wow.
Whereas the
Like a
old bare
weapon
knuckle
itself.
guys, they would break bones, they'd break skin, they would bleed. You know, generally you would have nothing worse than like a hematoma. That still did happen. People did die. The first recorded death in boxing was actually by Jack Bratton, who was the third recorded champion back in the 1730s.
Jack Broughton,
In
yep.
fact,
Know
the
the
first
champions.
rules of boxing were Broughton rules, and he devised these rules because he killed this guy in the ring. So the Irish, you have the Irish immigrants, and you have these these guys who call themselves Native Americans, and these Native Americans hated the Irish immigrants, hated them.
Wow.
They were very anti-Catholic, anti-Irish, anti-immigrant, and so the Irish, when Yankee Sullivan finally landed here, they like I said, they pulled him in and they made him their own and did him up. And so naturally these two forces are going to meet, and they do. Like I said, down in Maryland on this little island, Tom Hyer and Yankee Sullivan fight. The fight actually, I mean, compared to some other fights, Tom Hyer fought Yankee Sullivan's a few months prior to this fight, and that fight lasted over 100 rounds. It was like 101 rounds.
Damn, that must have been a long
This
fight.
fight, in comparison, this fight in comparison was relatively short. I forget how long. I think it was like about 17 minutes. But Tom Hyer was the winner. He was the definite declared winner, and he took on the title of the American champion. And so he's the first American heavyweight champion in boxing was Tom Hyer. Tom Hyer was a gang member. He was he was, besides being a butcher, he was all these other things. He was a criminal. It's who he was.
A criminal, basically. A gangster and a fighter. Yeah.
Yeah, he hung out at the Empire Club in New York that was run by Isaiah Rinders, who was probably we could probably consider Isaiah Rinders to be the New York City Don. The first man who had his thumb on the city, he's the power behind the politicians. He told them what to do. He ran all the street gangs, even the ones that hated each other and fighted each other. Isaiah Rinders could control them. He had that power. This was a rough time. Bill the Butcher. A lot of people. It's funny because today some people talk about Bill the Butcher, him being a bare knuckle boxer. He wasn't. He never boxed in his life. He was a gouger. He did what they called rough and tumble fighting. Rough and tumble fighting actually only had two rules: no wins and no intent on killing your opponent.
Wait, say it again. What were the
Outside of
rules?
that, you could do anything you want.
Can
No
you repeat that, though,
weapons
Dan? No
and no
weapons. Okay.
intentionally killing your opponent. Yeah, no intentionally killing your opponent. So if he died by accident, that was one thing, but you couldn't intentionally kill him.
That is crazy, though. Rough and tumble.
And
Yeah.
that's what Bill the Butcher did. Yeah, that's what he did. He was a gouger. Him. There's another guy, Jim Caroloman, who tried to make a career in boxing, but just he could never make it because all of his favorite techniques were illegal. There was another one. His name was Orange County, and that was his actual name at birth, Orange County. He was another one that was part of this. He was a Bowery boy and rough and tumble street fighter.
Yeah, man. Back in those years.
After Hire retires, Yankee Sullivan claimed the title, but he was never able to defend it. And he wound up losing it to a new Irish immigrant who moved from, who came down from upstate New York down to New York City, named John Morrissey.
So
John Morrissey, do you remember in Gangs in New York? Go ahead, George.
no, yeah, I just want to ask you a quick thing, and then I can continue the story. Now bare knuckle boxing is believed to start in England. What about the Irish? Did they do that? Because they always say the Irish, the fighting spirit, they go like this, or there was a variation of bare knuckle, so to speak. And the Irish kind of, on the leprechaun logo, they exaggerate because nobody really fought like this. You probably fight here.
Yeah.
You twist the curls. I mean,
Yeah.
right?
The first Irish champion in England was a Peter Corcoran. Peter Corcoran was mid 1700s.
Okay.
But it really didn't take off in Ireland. Oh, pardon me, until the 1790s. Okay.
So a little later on in Ireland.
1794. Well, in 1794, you have Daniel Mendoza, who becomes the heavyweight champion. Okay. Mendoza was an English Jew of Portuguese descent. Okay, so he was a Sephardic Jew in England, and wound up. He became the heavyweight champion. After he lost the belt and lost the title, he went on a tour to Ireland and around the country giving exhibitions, lessons, and really promoting the sport. And he wound up fighting the man who claimed to be the Irish champion. I believe his name was Fitzgibbons.
Fitzgibbons. I think
Fitz something or other. Off top of my head. But Mendoza beat him. Mendoza beat him easily, and so he wound up becoming the Irish champion. And his style of boxing became really popular in Ireland and eventually became known as the Irish style. That's why you see the Notre Dame leprechaun with both hands out.
Yeah.
Instead
they
of
also
that
called it a toe-to-toe or
one
something in
against the
Ireland.
body.
Yeah.
Well, that means toe to line. Toe to line.
It was one of the rule sets, I think. You have to kind of put the toe like this, right?
It was trash. What's that?
I said it wasn't like a rule, and as I asked Steve a question too. Like they were kind of like put the feet like this, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't it like when somebody would step on your foot? Hey, Steve, you watch the movie Gladiator with the boxing movie with Cuba Gooding Jr.?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. You can actually you're born. It's funny.
Yeah.
Right. So in that movie, now that's not necessarily bare knuckle boxing. That was like kind of like a style of old school boxing, I guess. But the guy was doing that. He's like, "Oh, you do this. You come here. Remember the bad guy, the promoter? You step with his foot, his toe, and you go, bah, 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 you tee off crazy." I was like, "Oh shit!" Remember that? That's a good movie.
Yeah, I remember.
The white guy, and then he was friends with Cuba Gooding. Very good movie, by the way. Me and Dan know about the movie, so that's why I have to mention it real quick. But yeah. Go ahead.
Well, it was you had the scratch in the center of the ring. You had what's called the scratch, and what it was that you started off. You put your toe on the scratch on the line, and so that's where the toe.
Gladiator is a great movie. Somebody commented, okay. Yeah, it is a good movie.
Yeah, it is. It was a good movie. I ain't gonna lie. But so you start off at the scratch, and since there were no time limits, you would fight until somebody went to the. Once somebody went to the ground, you had 30 seconds to come back to the scratch and restart, and you would keep going until somebody couldn't come back to the scratch, and then you could declare a winner.
Brutal fighting.
So that's where that comes from. Yeah. And so, the Irish, they do have a history of boxing. Like you said, Peter Corcoran, mid-1700s, 1750s. But it wasn't really until Mendoza in the 1790s. But once they adopted it, it became a thing. And, even today they have what's called the fair play, what they call fair play rules.
Yeah.
Which is rules. Yeah, which you can go on YouTube and look up fair play fights.
I heard about the fair play rules, like some rules of boxing. They still use them today, but it's like a little different because bare knuckle boxing is not the same as regular boxing. There's differences, but obviously the fair play rules are the same, and a lot of the terminology is the same from when they started with the balloon and prize rules, which is what modern boxing is kind of formulated as, what we know as boxing.
The fair play rules is somewhat of a blend between. The London Prize and Queensberry rules. They're kind of a blend. The of homegrownness mixed in. It's I love them. I love watching play. Sit there and watch them all day.
Right, but that's the thing. Great. People that might not understand, and I was telling Steve earlier, modern boxing, would it be considered fair play? Or is it a little different? Like the modern rules, and not so much like the old rules. Like how it's changed. Or would it be London Prize rules? It's kind of like what they modernized for this day and age. What they modified, I guess you could say, right? I think the 15-round thing, 12-rounder became in 1981 or 82 because Ray Mancini killed the Korean fighter.
Fair play doesn't have rounds.
You see?
Okay.
See, Steve?
That's one of the unique features. Yeah, features. Fair play doesn't have rounds.
It's just whoever goes down, whoever gives up. Okay, I can't continue. I'm tired. Drops your hands, or you get knocked out.
Yeah, you go down, you get back up, and you keep going.
Wow.
Right. They call it fair play because you're
no hitting on the belt,
fair,
right?
But no dodging. No hitting below the belt.
Or kicking him when he's down, punching him down.
They really no fighting inside a clinch. So
question for Dan here.
Yeah,
hey, Dan, real quick, bro.
That's the thing. As you can see, we've already. Yeah.
I'm sorry to cut you off. No, I just want to send you this, but you can continue though. Mr. Kanagie, how do you think the early DKFC fighters?
This is
Okay.
That was not.
How was the earlier bear fighters do against the modern bare knuckle? Honestly, I think it depends on the rules. If we take because one of the key aspects of the century London Prize rules is the grappling aspect. Okay, there was a wrestling aspect that was involved.
And grappling, yeah.
When you clinched, when you clinched up, the fight didn't stop. It separated. You kept fighting, and you were allowed to do takedowns, throws, strips. You were allowed to do submissions.
It's like a fight.
Whatever you wanted to do while you were inside there.
Pretty much like MMA in many ways. Trips were allowed, in fact, and throws. I think you told me it too.
The stand-up portion of the stand-up portion of today's MMA is a lot similar to what they did back then. So, some of the guys I think would do really good, especially the ones that come from an MMA background. The ones that come from a modern boxing background, I don't think they would do so well. They would wind up in a clinch, get thrown, land on their head, and they'd be, crapping their pants, going, "What the fuck?" With the
Yeah.
helmet.
They'll get kicked. It's different.
Just because a boxer's not used to getting thrown around.
You gotta do knockout boxing for that.
But on the reverse, if you took one of the guys from back then and put them in with some of the guys today under the rules today, they'd get annihilated.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, honestly, you look at the guys together, the athleticism of some of these guys is amazing. Back then, I think they understood certain back then. What's up, man? What's up?
He's our boy, yeah. Ezekiel.
They understood there were certain things like back then they understood. They knew about conditioning the hands. Okay. They understood about how to calcify the bones to strengthen the bones, and about pickling and the skin of to make the skin harder as well. So like some of the guys from back then, what their hands were so rough. They said if they slapped you in the face, it would rip the skin off your face.
Yeah, but slapping was allowed, right, Dan? In bare knuckle boxing, you can open hand strike like in pancrase and slap, correct? Like you can slap if you wanted to, or nah. They didn't open hands a lot, or they just only fist closed only. I thought that we could slap, no?
I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you could. It just wasn't done.
Yeah, no one really did it. I got you. Like elbowing,
it was just something that really wasn't done.
It wasn't done. Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, the pivot blow. That's how that started off. That was.
That's a good technique.
It's what I call the moment. It was those moves. One of those punches that was developed purely by accident in the heat of the moment. And then after the fact, the guy claimed that it was his secret and he'd been developing it for years. It's also one of the first punches that was banned from boxing.
You see?
But, yeah.
There was a lot of rules, man. Boxing changed.
Spin an elbow.
The headbutting, spinning elbow.
It was an ever evolving, It's like I said. I like the old rules. I like the concept. And it's part of it. I mean, the Wild West definitely was mixed in with all this. Wyatt Earp at one point referee.
Wyatt Earp. Wow, what a name. Talk about American history. That's it, guys. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Good character.
So
Wyatt Earp was basically
like after Yankee Sullivan retires. Yeah, definitely. Before Wyatt Earp was even born, you had somebody like I was saying, Yankee Sullivan, when he retired from up moving. He was one of the 49ers. Didn't really get involved in prospecting. Wound up falling back into his criminal ways. Became a political enforcer. Wound up killing the wrong person. And then he got arrested, put into prison. A lynch mob came after him. And he was found dead, hanging in his cell. Yeah, there's a crazy histories here, man.
A lot of stories.
One of my favorite boxing stories. Oh, here's out. This guy, Vero Small. He's arguably the first professional African American athlete in U.S. history. He was a slave who, at the end of the Civil War, moved from Dallas up to Vermont. Along the way, he boxed. Never was really good at it, but when he got to Vermont, he wound up falling into collar and elbow wrestling, which was the big style at the time. And he wound up becoming a champion, held multiple championships in collar and elbow. But
Which
he
is, by
always
the way,
boxed
doesn't know
on the
Irish wrestling.
side.
Is it Irish style of
And
wrestling?
he was down
For those that might not know.
collar and elbow. Yes, an Irish style. It was really the first style of wrestling that was recognized as professional in the U.S. And so he's down in New York City, and he's at Geegan's Full of the Bowery. Now, Oni Geegan is a former lightweight champion. Okay, he was champion from 1861, 1863. But he was more known for his bar, the Best Bowery. He ran this. It was at the time it was what we called a sports. Okay, so he had two different rings, one for boxing, one for wrestling. He would hold fights in there all the time, gambling.
Mixed fights, gambling.
There was one fight. He was refereeing one fight, and one of his friends was boxing and really getting beat. And he bet a lot of money for him to win. So as the referee, he put that gun to the other guy, and it tells him, "You're going to lose," just so he could win that bet.
Wow.
Crazy time. So anyway, Vero is down here at Oni Geegan's Bastille in the Bowery, and he boxes, and it was a good fight. He embarrasses the other guy, really. The other so unmatched. So he winds up winning, and later he's still there at the bar, he's drinking, and he winds up falling asleep in a chair. The guy that he boxed and beat came back with a gun, pulled it out, and Vero was sleeping, shoots him in the neck. Bang! Shoots him in the neck.
Wow.
Vero lived. He winds up living. He doesn't die. He winds up living. 3 months later, he's back in the ring boxing. 3 months after getting shot in the neck, he's back in the ring boxing.
Wow.
I mean, so how do you think he would do today? You know what I mean? Like, tough dude, man. And
Right.
tough guys, you know?
I mean, it was different back then, but the guy Viri showed me the picture of, he looked short and stocky, and he told me about that. We'll get into it later, possibly the script for a movie. I mean, you got a guy who's kind of built a certain way, probably could play him because he was a bulldheaded guy with kind of like a small frame. But I guess he was strong though, because to be an Irish wrestler, you got to be pretty good, I guess. So, yeah.
Oh yeah. But you know, collar and elbow wrestling was different because it was it's collar and elbow wrestling, but it's described as boxing with your feet.
Wow. Yeah.
There's a lot of footwork, kicking, tripping, hooking, grapevines, a lot of footwork. It's a really cool, really neat style, really unique. Yeah, it's not what you would expect a guy who just left slavery in Virginia.
Exactly.
But he did. Like I said, he wound up getting multiple titles. The guy was big time, man.
That's
Wow.
all. That's crazy.
Awesome stuff, bro. Some stuff. Real quick, then, before we kind of like slowly move on from this topic, it's from some of the American common sports and all that. What about a little bit of the kind of relation between wrestling and boxing, and better yet, bare knuckle boxing and catch wrestling? Can we kind of elaborate on that a little? And I know we talked about some American sports like rough and tumble, which is a common way to dispute. I'm sorry, to handle disputes and all that. Sometimes guys just fight, and the winner, would kind of like just be the winner, and he'd kind of win the dispute. But was there a connection between like catch wrestling back then and like bare knuckle boxing and boxing and wrestling, especially in those years, and fighting?
I mean, there always was. There always was.
Okay.
I mean, you there. Even back then, just like today, people talk about who would win in a fight, boxer versus wrestler, and all that. Now you got to remember, boxing has been going on in the U.S. since the mid 1700s. Wrestling has been happening in the U.S. since then. Always these different styles of wrestling. Catch wrestling didn't really come on the scene at the time of the Civil War.
Correct. Because some presidents apparently
but like
catch.
I said, there is a not really.
Yeah, that's
they like to say
stories.
it, but not really. Yeah, George Washington. They say George Washington was a wrestling champion, and the story is that he was an Irish collar and elbow champion in Virginia.
Different type of wrestling.
There's actually zero evidence that George Washington wrestled.
So there's actually no evidence at all that he was even a wrestler.
There's
period.
stories
In any style, in any kind of way. Oh, yeah.
Correct. Yeah, he's an aristocrat. He was one of those Southern aristocrats we talked about earlier. You know, the combat sports were beneath him. That wasn't his station. He was above that. Then they say, you know, Lincoln was a champion wrestler. You know, Lincoln's actually in the Wrestling of Fame. Was he a wrestler? He was a frontier guy, frontier fighter. He did whatever it was called at the time, whether it was wrestling, whether it was boxing or rough and tumble. It didn't matter. He did it. Frontier guy. So was he a catch wrestler? No, he was not. To a degree, yeah. But he was a frontier guy.
Yeah, I got you. He was more of a duelist, honestly. A frontier wrestler fighter. Frontier wrestler is not catch wrestling. For those that think this is the same, they're similar but not quite. Because a lot of it comes from anyway from England, like Lancashire.
Yeah, well, I mean,
a lot of submissions.
Some of those guys come from that background. You got to remember, Jack Dempsey was a gloved champion, but came up through bare knuckle boxing. He was actually at the Depression. He was a hobo bare knuckle champion. So, I mean, guys here, yeah, they came up in they're part of early, that early gloved era, which was actually a transitional era between the bare knuckle and the glove boxing. You had a lot of guys,
regular boxing,
that started off in the one and ended up in the other. John L. Sullivan, who was the last bare knuckle champion. That's awesome you're here, man.
I appreciate you.
We call John L.
Sullivan. That is.
Why do we call him the Great? But why do we call John L. the Great One? Guy only won 3 bare knuckle fights. So why do we call him the Great One? Because he was the only person to hold a heavyweight title in both prize rules and Queensberry rules. This guy could switch back and forth like it was nothing. He had some of his fights were glove fights, but under London prize rules. Some fights were skin tight gloves under Queensberry rules. He didn't care. He'd mix it up. That's why he's the Great One. Okay. Sullivan also single-handedly probably did more than any other single person to their boxing. I mean, there comes with there's positives and negatives of these guys. Sullivan, like I said, because he could do both and because he held the title in both, he's the one who combined both heavyweight titles. So if you wanted, no matter what background you came from, if you wanted to fight him for the title, it was under his, he got to dictate. We're going to fight under which rules, and for the longest time, it was Queensberry rules because he knew a lot of these guys under London rules and had a hard time transitioning to gloves and Queensberry rules. He was able to game the system
environment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he did what he felt he had to do to retain the title. And I don't fault the guy for it. I'm not going to condemn the guy for it. But because of that, and because of holding the title for 10 years, by the time he lost it to a guy who was a banker and had only fought amateur glove boxing.
Oh wow!
Come on,
banker.
man.
That's hilarious.
It's like,
how does that even happen, right?
Jim Corbett was a banker who learned to box at the YMCA under AAU rule. Like, he was an amateur gloved boxer, and he took out the great. He took out the GOAT, man. Sullivan was the best of the best. Sullivan is a guy when Sullivan fought Kilrain down in Mississippi for the final title in 1889. Kilrain had so many fans in attendance. When Sullivan had to leave, he had to get through a crowd. He got shanked gut by with a Bowie knife. Had to get on a horse and ride his out of there before they killed him.
Wow,
dude was tough. That was just
talk about crazy times,
man.
lawless times. Yeah, man. Yeah, it was tough. Different era.
He got taken out by a banker. Yeah, he got taken out by this banker. So championship, he was only a glove fighter. And that right there that was the final coffin and final nail in the coffin for bare knuckle at that point, at least for the heavyweights. The final heavyweight fight was 1889, and the final lightweight fight was 1892. Middleweight, there were only 3 middle champions at that division that took off. It was the big guys and the little guys. But yeah, so once Corbett took, man, it was gloved all the way from there on. But so a lot of these guys who came up in position had to relearn, had to put on the gloves and relearn. But to be honest with you, a lot of these guys were already good at it. Sullivan wasn't the only one. He just happened to be the one to have the title with. So he wasn't the only one. There were a lot of great boxers out there, guys that were great without the gloves. Didn't matter. A lot of these guys went on to have great careers with gloves. Like you're saying, Jack Dempsey was one.
Yeah, Jack Dempsey's a very famous one. And
John
Sullivan, bro, was he both as well, or what? John Sullivan, he actually did both, didn't he? Like, but you see, he could switch to both, right? Like, he could kind of like fight bare knuckle.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. Yeah, he did both. He had the title.
I heard a lot about him. I actually read some paper. As a matter of fact, wasn't John L. Sullivan one of the guys that did a match against a wrestler in one of those like mixed matches, way like the 1890s, 1900s? Like, he did a match where he was slammed, and the guy fought like a wrestler, judo guy, and he got unlocked. Or that's not true. I thought I read something about that. Like,
he did cross matches. But the thing is, you have to remember, Sullivan was a master at the wrestling portion of boxing.
Ah, you see.
One of the reasons he did so well against Kilrain, the final championship fight, was that Sullivan understood the wrestling portion better than Kilrain.
They helped him in the long run.
And Sullivan was a man.
Yeah, hey, Steve. Real quick, Steve. Question: have you ever heard the name like before today of like John L. Sullivan? You ever heard of it? They ever come close or not really? Like, have you heard the name before? Because he's actually kind of a famous old school fighter. So a lot of guys, like kind of like know the name but don't know who's from. And say, oh yeah, that guy. He was a old school boxer. Yeah.
You played him in like a little role before. I remember that. It was like you played him as like a bar.
Yeah, they did a match, like a little friendly match, like a bare knuckle fight. Yeah, but I wasn't. I was Yankee Sullivan. I wasn't John L. Sullivan. That was actually the guy they were talking about earlier.
Yankee Sullivan. Yeah. not sure if Dan like froze for a moment.
Freeze for seconds.
I think he might have. Let's see.
All right, no problem. Just trying to re-enter him back in, so we can start heading talk a little bit about the Ukraine thing and a few other things as well. You might have to. Do you feel like take him out and bring him back in?
Oh, he said his computer. He just messaged me. He said his computer died. I guess he's gonna try to come back on.
Oh, no problem, no problem. In the meantime, we're just kind of like focus this a little more. I think he's froze or some shit. Probably in charge of computer. I had the same issue. So yeah, man, a lot of stuff going on in bare knuckle boxing. Definitely.
There he is.
There he is. Very interesting sport. Yeah, he had a little issue there.
Now. What's up, Dan?
I had to switch over to the phone real quick. Sorry, guys.
No problem. No problem.
Bigger screen, yeah.
There we go.
There we go. Yeah. So we covered a good amount of history of bare knuckle boxing. Clearly, what's going on in the States then.
I was just saying that George played like a little friendly role as like he like portrayed Yankee Sullivan. What was that thing you did before when you did Yankee Sullivan?
Yeah, me and Dan did like a friendly match at a burlesque.
We did an exhibition match at this burlesque that they did.
Boxing. It was good.
Yeah, we just to the best of our ability.
I mean, the best we could. We didn't kill each other, but it was definitely all the way in there. Dan hit me some good shots, and I was like, we got to make it happen because you don't want to get out of character. And remember, Dan, when we asked them, we're like, so if it wasn't for us, because they figured these two guys are bare knuckle boxers, prize fighters, shoot fighters, MMA guys, martial artists, they know what's going on. They know what's up. Had it been some other guys, you know what they would have done? They would have got boxing guys, actual boxers with gloves on, probably, or gloves off, and just probably teed off each other going in. So good thing me and Dan did that role because, I mean, he actually helped us out a little too. And
yeah, we added the elements that would have actually been there. Like I said, the wrestling aspect of it. When there were we clinch up and we would do a takedown,
a trip, a punch to the body, just snap down. All that. I mean,
back fist. Punches that existed back then that don't exist in boxing today. We were able to incorporate and make it a more realistic.
Yeah, like we didn't need to kick each other, but we definitely were punching each other. Let's put it that way. I mean, I thought, we're not going to. Yeah, punches. We definitely got some punches. The knee and the kicking wasn't really quite there, or headbutting, but it was pretty rough. But anything with bare knuckles, bro, it scares people. They're okay with gloves.
Dude, these knuckles were messed up for like about a year and a half after that fight, man.
I got a big head, bro. Sorry, dude. The only guy here that probably fights his coach, man, and one of the coaches fighting one of his students. But sometimes he be like that, And funny thing is, Steve, when we did that, the guy we did it with, a gentleman named Adam, I had done a movie with him previously, but he's like he barely remembered me, and he done movies, and he's actually a school teacher in Philly at George Washington and other high schools too. So it's like we did a burlesque here, met some cool people there, and it's like everybody knows each other in the whole theater movie scene. And they had this guy named what was his name? Metal Bender, and he could bend metal like this. He's a big, strong kid. He could bend metal.
Oh yeah. No.
What was his name?
Now I'm going blank. Yes, man, you asked me for his name. Now I'm going blank. I don't know. I follow him on Instagram.
I don't remember his name exactly, but he was good though. He was like he had his role too.
Yeah. He had a nice little sideshow thing going with bending steel and all that.
Yo, real quick, Dan, was he really bending steel there, or it was like fake steel bending?
No, that was real.
It was real. He can really bend. Yeah, bro. We were the fighters, but he's the strongest man in the world. He's probably stronger than us, but we're just fighters. And I was like, how does this work? Like, he just goes like this. Look.
I can do. George, if you want, I can hook you up with somebody to teach you.
I want to actually. You know what? I'll take the offer.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I got friends that do that.
It's
all about grip strength and mind over matter, man.
Mind over matter. Magneto did this. This guy can literally Magneto. He's way with hands, not with my power like Magneto from X-Men. But
they say mind when we talk about the mind over matter part. It's pushing through the pain. When these guys are bending, or like when you see them like rolling a frying pan up, or bending the Russian nail and stuff like that, that hurts them. That they feel that hurts. They're just pushing through that pain. That's all it is. I got a buddy that I sent one of the guys I was training with me before I met you, George. I sent him upstate to train with the guy for a weekend. And after 2 days, they had my boy ripping an entire deck of cards in half. He'll teach you how to do that.
Crazy
Yeah, how to
ass
rip
hand
cards in
strength,
half,
bro.
how to rip a phone book. He'll teach you how to do all that.
Yeah. I know some people used to actually rip phone books back when I was in high school. I remember people would do it. I was like, how do you hell the yellow pages? It's just you just rip it like you one take, like yeah.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
I never met.
Yeah. Danny Hodge, American wrestler. Danny Hodge. He was
I heard of him.
he was an amateur wrestler. Considered one of the strongest grips I mean, honestly, it's one of the strongest grips I've ever seen. This guy, I mean, all the way up into his 80s, would take an apple and he'd be able to turn that apple into applesauce with just his hand.
Oh, wow. Applesauce, they had this drip that like 11 and shit, but just a strong grip. Yeah, people do that.
Yeah, and just imagine that guy grabbing onto you, man.
Like gripping your wrist, bro. It's over, bro. In a wrestling match, especially for anybody's done like amateur wrestling and wrestling or in high school wrestling and all that, it's very important to have a grip and be able to go low, like in every wrestling, but especially here, they teach you wrist control, which you also teach in our styles of wrestling and in pro wrestling and all that good stuff. But if you have a grip like that, if a guy grabs you, you can do this all you want. If he's got that grip, it's gonna be hard to peel it off. You got to really push and don't let him grab you. I mean, shooting from far, but if he's shooting from far, he can sprawl on you. So yeah, bro, basically get your grip up, dude. You know what they should do, dude? Guys in BJJ, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitions, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they'll tell the guys, get the gi, go in one of those, like when you do pull-ups and go like this, throw the gi over, grab the gi, go like this and pull yourself to make your hands strong. And the gi will literally cut your hands. It's strong cloth. Or do pull-ups.
That's some prison stuff right there, man. That's some prison workout.
Prison work. Yeah, definitely. I forgot who did that. I don't know if it was, somebody told me that allegedly had seen not Hands of Gracie. What's his name? Hicks and Gracie do it. Somebody else said another guy did it. Somebody told me that a guy named Joe Moriera used to do that. He's a BJJ coach from. Matter of fact, he's the guy that gave him a lot of shit for teaching a luta libre guy, which is a Brazilian style of wrestling, of submission wrestling, and it's a martial arts on his own. They were rivals with the Brazilians who did BJJ because the poor did wrestling, which was luta libre. The more rich guys did BJJ. So Joe Moriera, who fought in UFC, I believe UFC 7, Brazilian jiu-jitsu coach and got like an organization. He took a lot of shit from Brazilians for teaching a fellow Brazilian who was a luta libre guy, awarded him a black belt. They didn't like that. The guys at the BJJ like, oh, why are you doing that? So yeah, it's a lot of stories there, but a lot of these workouts, I mean, some of these guys were doing it, and Joe Moriera was another guy that he favored both gi and no gi, but he told you that like doing gi basically do pull-ups, get your hands strong, grip, push, grab, whatever. I mean, any kind of workout you could do. Or the little, what do you call the little things? You can like little strong little scissors, kind of like for your grip, the grip type of weights. That helps. I mean, a tennis ball is squeezed, but the tennis ball is for this because this gets tired. In wrestling, I mean, you'll be remember that one of my matches, Dan, how tired I was. If you do a tennis ball, you squeeze it, it builds callus in here. So this part is really strong, and you need this for grappling, boxing too, but especially for grappling. If this gets tired, dude, that's why you cannot go too fast. The blood flow around your arms got to really flow. I mean. If it doesn't flow, you're gonna be really tired, and your hands feel jet. You feel like, like your hands are strong, but they're contracted. They feel like your hands are on fire and they're paralyzed. I mean, they feel like they're just steel in your hands, in your forearms. Very important for wrestlers to keep their all body flowing, their blood flowing, especially catch guys and pro wrestlers, which kind of almost everything's legal. So, yeah. So, all right, guys. So let's kind of move on. Very fascinating stuff. Very interesting stuff. I know some guys here love combat sports. Either they don't particularly practice it. A lot of guys are questioning. Definitely watch them. I mean, almost all men watch combat sports. Let's be real. Everybody, probably flip his channel, watch a little. You might not be into him and walk away, but you're gonna watch 5 minutes at least of a boxing match, bare knuckle boxing match, cage fighting match, MMA, whatever, wrestling, etc. So definitely fascinating stuff, and we'll do maybe a part 2 eventually and talk more about stuff like this in some of our future episodes. Now let's talk about a little bit some. Yeah, let's see what we're saying.
I was just saying that was very informative. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, definitely.
That's of course.
Switch up a little. We're going to talk about some current events, and we'll kind of end it a little with the war between Ukraine and as well as Russia and some of the conflict. And I kind of want Dan to talk about that a little too because he knows a lot of insights on that. Also, the root of the problem. But before we get there, let's cover a little bit. So I'm not sure who the viewers know about this. I'm sure a lot of people have watched that. Speaking of fighting in MMA and boxing, all that good stuff, and wrestling, a very popular UFC fighter by the name of Cain Velasquez, who was actually a former UFC champion. I know who Steve. I know you've seen him before. He's also the man that beat Brock Lesnar. That took the title from Brock Lesnar back in 2010. who actually,
That was a great
believe it or
fight,
not,
man.
yeah, good fight, right? Exactly, very good fight. We hit it between him and Brock Lesnar, and they actually had a rematch in a pro wrestling WWE type of match because Cain Velasquez had gotten WWE recently, and Brock got the revenge, did win the submission over Kane. Kane beat the shit out of him in MMA, and Brock got beat him in pro wrestling, fair and square. Now, so Cain Velasquez was involved in an accident over this past week. I believe 2 days ago, in an episode where he actually shot an alleged perpetrator, culprit, and a guy that an alleged, I don't know the exact thing, so we got to use the term alleged, an alleged perpetrator and the child molester, who is allegedly molesting his child. But there's a couple of twists and turns to the story. So before people, jump to the conclusions and say things that are not quite, they may or may not happen, but didn't happen exactly the way they think it happened. Let's shed some light on that a little. I know Dan has been watching the story, knows a little, has some opinions on the story, and not just opinions, but facts on it. I know I watched a little bit. I didn't read the whole article. I read a couple articles, but new articles are coming along. As we know, what happens? Okay, of course. We'll put in a second. Hang one second. So what happens? Well, we all know that what happens is always two sides to the story. As the story develops, more comes out. So we can't really say too much. So Kane did the wrong thing, right thing. We got to be objective. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But I'll tell you, the first thing when I first started hearing about it, and I was reading, I read the articles about it. The first thing that came to mind. Now, you guys are probably too young to. I know you're too young to remember. You weren't even alive yet.
Okay.
Back in the early mid '80s, out in California, there was a home daycare service that run by this family, and all over an allegation of child molestation, destroyed these people's lives. Basically what happened was this lady, this lady was giving her son a bath. Her son, was a toddler. He was a little kid, giving him a bath, and she noticed that his rear was red, swollen, sore, and sensitive to touch, and took him to the hospital. They did an exam and came back, that he was molested. And one of the things they did was they had a counselor come in and talk to this kid. And after the counselor was done, all the eyes were pointed at this daycare center. And as the police were investigating, more victims, and we actually going to put that in quote marks because most of these kids, none of these kids except for the one were actual victims. But they had this counselor go and talk to these other kids, and like the crazy stories, this as this went along, the stories got crazier and crazier and crazier. Like one kid was talking about how the teachers took them onto an airplane ride and they went to another city, and then from there they went to a church where they murdered bunnies.
Wow.
Well, how is a daycare center going to get a private chartered plane and take kids across the country to another city? How is this going to happen? Especially in the end,
Murder bunnies. It sounds like the movie Us. Sounds like the movie Us. Remember they had the rabbits in the movie Us at the very end there? They had the bunnies.
Yeah. But
movie, but
yeah. So it was as this was going on and these stories started coming out and getting crazier and crazier and less believable, the police were finally like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And what it all turned out to be was this counselor was actually planting the memories, unintentionally planting these false memories in these kids' head to begin with. And this family that ran this daycare center, their lives were destroyed, completely destroyed, especially the one son who was the center of the investigation. Like this poor guy, like never worked again. Like he could never hold a job. Like this family's business was ruined. That like they were never going to have, even though they're innocent, and it came out that they were innocent, they're never going to have a daycare center again. Nobody's going to trust them. And it turned out that it was
right. He ruins your name. He clearly can ruin your credibility.
right. Well, it all came out that in the end that
Right.
it was the kid's dad who molested him.
Wow.
Who
Nothing
molested
to
him? I didn't
do-
hear the last part. Can you repeat that, please?
It was the kid's dad. It was the kid's own father that molested him.
Oh,
It wasn't this daycare center. So that's my first thought when I read about all of this was, look, it's not easy. And my sympathy goes out to the family, everybody involved. But just first off, from what I gathered from the story so far, he shot and missed the guy that he was actually aiming for, and wound up hitting the guy next to him. So he shot in somebody who wasn't even involved. And if he shot
yeah. He
this
shot
guy,
the father-in-law of the guy, I believe.
something like that, But the thing is, if it turns out, if you shoot this guy, and if it turns out, evidence comes out that the guy is actually innocent, and it was somebody else, well, now you shot an innocent person. So like,
Yeah.
it's emotional. And look, I'm not condemning Velasquez for what he did. I'm not at all. I'm not going to lie. I would probably do the same thing because it is emotional.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
hard in those moments to think.
yeah, it's just one of those. It's sad all around, and with
Very
everything going
unfortunate.
on. Meanwhile, this poor kid was molested at the heart of it all.
Well,
You
it's his
know?
kid apparently, but also a friend. I mean, I believe it was Kane's child, and somebody else as well. So they want to find out. Like, first of all, we need to know how many kids were molested, who did it, and was there any truth to that? I mean, still, yeah, no, I don't believe Kane should have shot him. I would have probably done the same thing, maybe even worse. But it's very hard to say what I would have done because none of us were really there to see, and there's more to the story. So people
Yes.
say free Kane. I give it the same though, but I understand your perspective, bro. And no, it cannot be, what they're
I
killing.
mean, look, if this person here,
even though they don't deserve to live.
if this person here who says that he molested his family member has the proof that this guy is the one who did it, bring it out. Give it to the police. Like let's bring the guilty party to justice. Let's bring them in and
that's what people need to bring step forward. I mean, how do they get caught in a daycare? I mean, there's molestation. See, this is very disturbing. This is nothing like funny to laugh about, to be like, oh, free Kane because I like Kane. I don't give a shit who Kane is. Right now he's a man like everybody else, but he's a man that, I mean, I don't know him personally, but I know him as a UFC fighter. Always was a good champion. Never was a bad person. Never really even shit talk people. If anything, he was more of a cheap people's family man. He acted like he would act. Did he literally like jump the gun in a literal and in a like pun intended? I mean, yeah, probably did. But at the same time, Kane could have beat the shit out of him. You know what? He would have killed him if he beat the shit out of him. The fact he shot him, he didn't kill him. It's better because Kane, I mean, Kane is 245 and like 6'3". He's a huge 6'4". He's a big motherfucker.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
I mean, I think Eric might have met him or something because he's in California right there. He's a big motherfucker. He says it like this. You don't want to get beat to death by this man. And the guy who probably did is a probably smaller, regular person, untrained. And you have a UFC gorilla here looking like, what'd you do? Like, I mean, I'm just saying, dude, the fact that he shot him could possibly be the reason, the way that, I mean, the reason the guy's still alive, whatever saved the guy's life. If he did or did do it, I mean, if he did it, he's a piece of shit and he deserves everything God. If he didn't do it, then it's unfortunate. Got to find the culprit or the guilty man.
This is one of those instances where it's very easy for all of us not involved to sit back and say things and make past judgments. It's versus being that person that it's happening to.
It's a shame because if your friend was framed, you feel the same way. And say you're a friend that got framed. We have a friend that gets framed for like murder, rape, molestation, something very fucking dangerous, very very serious. It's like you want to be friends, but if everything's against them, and back in the day they would frame people. I'm not saying this guy got framed. I'm just saying sometimes you gotta kind of see from every angle. Don't take it with a grain of salt. Understand like they were saying. I feel what Coach Jenny's saying. You gotta know the story. Don't just judge because you heard something. Oh, he did this, so he must have done it.
Exactly.
You know who's the hero? You know who I think did it right? There was this one dad
his daughter was raped, and the guy who did it, yeah, it was like they had the proof that this guy did it. He was guilty, and he escaped and he ran, and they wound up catching him, and they're bringing him home. And there's actually footage of this. I think you can go online and look it up and watch it.
I think
And they're in the airport, and here you see the news cameras are videotaping the police walking this guy down off the plane through the terminal, and you see a bank of phones, and the guy's on the talking on the phone, and as they pass by, this dude just hangs up the phone, turns around, pulls out the gun, boom, got him right there in the airport. Hero.
for the police and everything. Yeah,
He didn't care. He didn't care.
that's crazy. Yeah,
He went
Yeah, I
inside,
can agree
and
with
you
that.
know what? That dude was taken care of inside.
Yeah. There, yo, Dan, real quick, actually, I'm just gonna stick on this 1 second because we're gonna move on in a little bit, but to another subject, another topic. But
Yep.
wasn't there a guy, and I shared this on Facebook about 3 years or 2 years ago, that something like in an ambulance, either in Australia or in I forgot what is that? The father beat the shit out of a pedophile that had molested his daughter or son or something like that. It was either South Africa or Australia, I want to say. It happened a few years ago, and he resurfaced again like 6 months later, a year later, and somebody shared it, even though it was almost a year late. But they shared it because the message, it was like, father. I think you remember that one because you might have seen him on my wall. I was sharing a lot.
I hear about something like that at least once every year or every 2 years. I hear a story like that come out.
Fucked up. It happens.
Where in fact, I remember hearing one a couple months ago. I think it was like down in Virginia, where it was like a dad actually walked in and caught a dude raping his daughter, and beat the dude to death on the spot. Or no, I think it was in Texas. I think it was, and the cops they didn't even arrest him.
Wow, that's crazy.
Dude, that's justified insanity.
It's crazy.
Right there.
It's 100. I 100.
Exactly. I agree. Like with what you guys were saying about the part where you need to get every side of the story. I feel like nowadays, man, like everybody just kind of wants to read headlines. They don't want to actually look at all the angles.
No, they just want to hear what they see.
They'd rather just judge. You see it on social media all the time. People will share something and they don't actually read the article.
They don't even click on
the
it,
headline. Yeah, it could be a fake article. You don't even scroll. You don't even actually read it, and they just share because they see a headline and they want to pass judgment.
They want to pass judgment so fast, and they want to just judge everything. Oh, he's wrong. When I know the details, but now they don't even picture themselves as a person who did it. Like for example, back in the day, somebody I think it's like Italy, something like an immigrant, and he was there legally, but as we know, there's a lot of racism out there in those countries. He might have hit a child, and he should have stopped, but he kind of kept going. The child survived, right? But the guy, it's like, even if he stayed, what would happen? If he stayed, he would have got in trouble. So they had him in one of those TV shows. They brought him out. He suffered a little bit, not too much, not even a year. He came out, and all the people there were all pissed off because he actually married an Italian girl. And all the racists, they're all mad. Oh, this guy does this. Why? Because he's from an Eastern European country, and you don't like the fact that he's here? That's racism. And okay, he fucked up by not stopping, but I guess it's more like he got scared because even if he stopped him, he'll be condemned. It's like a minority hitting a white kid back in the day in a hit and run, and only not stopping because being feeding him for life, and then of course had he stopped and and helped the kid and brought him back, okay, and that's a scratch. Okay, what happened? He's still being judged because let's be real, it was fucked up in the 60s and before that. So I mean, again, I'm not a fan of hit and runs at all. I think it's scummy. You got to stay there, but I can understand some situation. You got to kind of sometimes look at from an angle. You cannot be so close-minded. Like people, like you said, oh, it's an article, such as this, bang, Cain Velasquez shoots man, he got to go to jail now. Yeah, I know the intricacies, you know what I'm saying? Kanye West does video, he buries Pete Davidson. Maybe Kanye wants to be funny, I mean, what can you just say? Or he's just being a little best, we know that. But what I'm saying is, the point I'm making is you cannot go by just a headline, a video you watch, a story on IG, he say, the internet, if you don't read the article and get more than one source, because a lot of these sites are garbage. Let me tell you right there. I have to tell people, don't send me BS because it's not true. I look at the source, it's outdated, it's old, it's biased. You gotta get the good sites and the good sources, like they were saying. The Cain Velasquez thing, he got a right source. He actually did it the right way. He looked that up more than just one article on Facebook. And it's been on MMA news all over. I mean, as you might expect, it's Cain Velasquez. The dude's a legend. So they gotta read about it and get every angle. Again, fucked up situation. I hope Cain doesn't do a lot of time. I'm sure somebody did something, but maybe Cain shot the wrong person. Maybe he wasn't even one of those guys. He was a guy that lied. Say, oh, it was this dude, and the guy he got away. Maybe So, like Dan said, catch the real guy, bring him to justice. Whoever did is a fucking scumbag. I just don't think why they would lie about that. He say no fake lie, like the whole thing with something that happened with Tisha Campbell or the Jesse Smollett thing when he said that like, oh, it was a hate crime, but it was nothing of the sort. It was just a fake thing. This is not it. This has got nothing to do with that. This is like actually probably really happened. But Kane reacted like any parent would. And
look, man, my heart goes out to Kane. It really does.
Yeah.
I mean, my heart goes out to his whole family,
No doubt.
especially the victim more than anybody.
Yeah.
You know,
supposed to be he's one of what was actually two. I believe this. I don't know Dan, because you might have read like more article than me when it comes to this. Apparently, it was two kids, I believe, but one of them is Kane's child. That's what a lot of sources are saying. So I'm trying to figure out was it a relative of his? Was it his child, or was it like somebody like say like his cousin's child? They said fuck this motherfucker, he shot him. Kane should have just picked the guy up like this, one hand like Hercules, and threw him hard. Kane is that strong. I don't know. I mean, I don't see why you got to shoot him, but you have to realize he's a former UFC fighter. He's a retired mixed martial artist.
But also, I mean,
his hands are registered.
It's the emotion. That's an emotional thing right there, man. That's like you're not thinking straight. You're not in your right mindset when that happens. It's sad all around, man. I'm like I said, my heart goes out to the family. It really does.
100%. It's such a sad situation, just all around.
Yeah, I have no patience for any. I don't mind like seeing anybody get hurt as long as they're not innocent. I don't like watching innocent people get hurt.
Me neither.
That bothers me.
Shit, you're not lying, bro. And speaking of which, man, there's so much fuckery in the world, dude. Like we could be sitting here talking for days. As a matter of fact, one day, maybe like when depending, if we still got time down the line, or even if we do our own podcast and you do some shows eventually, we could talk about gym bullies in MMA. I don't like how a lot of fighters, a lot of guys in martial arts are supposed to be these good. They're supposed to be warriors, heroes, but there's nothing but cowards that beat up guys that are not really that good. Guys that are old, guys that are injured, guys that just come in. Guys that don't necessarily fight by train, and they think they're all cool and bad, and they beat them up. And then you see a real fighter there, he hands them their ass, and they're looking crazy. And it's a lot of fighters do this too. Actual fighters that I can name you who I don't want to name names right now because I'm not trying to do that. But there's a lot of fighters that you'd be like, wow, this guy does it, and they're fighters that fight UFC on the weekend. They're on pay-per-views, they're on fight cards. You're like, wow, how you do that? You're a celebrity. Yeah. Gym bullies, bro, assholes.
Yep.
I've been the guy there. I was the bully of bullies. I definitely told Steve that told you that. Remember we talked about it, the dentist thing, where guys will be like Galliano and his guys out there, the guys that should train at the old gym, Mike Winkler, even Bill told me, or even Rick, for example. Rick was definitely known for that. A guy coming in, a fucking asshole, a piece of crap, didn't belong there. Should be a bit and tough, pants up to your butt, sag, thinking you're a fighter. First of all, you got the wrong attire. They come in there, beat up the young guys, and be like, all right, George, I want you to go in there. You're going to take him out. You're going to definitely do a little job on him. But if they ask you, just be like, oh, no, I'm just a judo guy. I did judo for like a year, not even. I'm not that good. I would go there, roll the guys, bop, boop, slam him around, put him in ankle locks, crack him with punches. And I was supposed to be like the cleaner up, the gym enforcer. Except that when I actually sparred those bullies, I remember one time I had the guy in the air and I slammed him, but I didn't slam him hard. I actually be like, if I slam him, I'll kill this kid. I just took him down, and then we're rolling. He got me in an ankle lock. When he thought it was an ankle lock, I'm like, I'm tapping out, and I just clowned him. And I got out of it, got him in an ankle lock, tapped him out real quick. But I didn't hurt him. See, I could have been the guy that hurt the bullies. At the end of the day, I'm not trying to hurt. Even though they're scumbags of the streets, I don't want to actually hurt them because, it's just not good karma. I rough him up a little bit, all right, feel when he gets punched, what it is like to get punched, boop real fast. But, it was never where, like, I could put him on a commission. Some gym enforcers are basically even goons. Like, come on, 2 runs to make it a right, bro. I know the guy's a scumbag. Unless the guy really hurt somebody really bad, okay, you got to come in. But at the same time, you're not going to fuck him up where he can't barely walk or he doesn't even know left from right. Rough up a little bit.
I think the individuals, it's all about the individual situation.
Yeah, like remember when Floyd Sr., did you ever see Steve? So Mayweather's father, Floyd Mayweather Sr., was sparring a gym troll, who's actually a racist that apparently went to Deontay Wilder's gym and said some wishes, some kind of wannabe skinhead who thinks he's a tough guy. So he goes up there and fights guys online and beats them up and he goes in and he hears guys, that they're not good or guys are like, upcoming boxers or whatever, and he bullies them on YouTube. He has a name. And no, it's not Jake Paul, by the way. Huh?
It's Charlie Z.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Like Zelnick or something like that.
Yeah, he had a scene where he told he was fucking around trying to spar with Deontay Wilder, getting fucked up, and then he kept saying, "No, it's not so chill." He'd be like, "No, we can keep going. What's up?" And then he would kind of keep distance, and then he did some sucker shit. He's like, "I'll rip your daughter," and he ran out. And then Deontay Wilder, "What you say, motherfucker?" He ran after it, and then they ran after that fool. He sneak punched the not Roger Mayweather, rest in peace. I believe he died. Floyd Sr., right?
Mm-hmm.
Floyd's father. So when he did that, dude, a guy named Kenny This guy that was in the gym there, one of their boxers, black guy named Kenny. Oh, dude, he cracked him so hard. I was like, yes, Kenny, keep fucking this dude up. He's fucking. How dare he come here, start trouble? When the guys, like gives some mercy because he's letting go, and Floyd Senior was fucking him up with the open hand style. He's doing this to him, bro. Like he's like, pop, 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 pop. I mean, you don't want to fuck around with Floyd Senior. That's what I'm saying. The dude is no G with boxing. And he turns around, this piece of shit cheap shot at him. Dude, every boxer dropped everything, start teeing off for them. That's what I'm talking about. I felt no remorse for the guy. I didn't feel better for all. You know why? Because he had it coming. Not only in the gym doing sucker shit, you stick punch no G. You disrespectful. You try to be like a little tough guy, and you're trying to you're gonna get your ass beat, dude.
That's just not gonna fly. That's just
all. You're already in hostile territory. Being there, you're unknown. They don't take kind to guys that don't know like that, especially because they know a lot of guys are like that. It's not they're not friendly. Honestly, dude, if you have money like that, you can get trained with the money. Dude, it's not that hard.
It would be like going into like a gang's territory, man, and shooting the leader. Like
in a foot. Like,
you're not making it out alive. You're not making it out alive.
Not at all, dude.
No. Yeah, no.
Yeah, I mean, not a gang, especially in LA. We see some shit in LA, me and Dan. It's a different era, different ballgame out there. But yeah, so.
Yeah, remember in A Bronx Tale when they shoot Sonny, it's like whatever happens to the dude who shoots Sonny, I'm like, he's not making it out.
He never made it alive, but the guy got revenge for his father. Remember, because he killed the guy 20 years earlier for a parking spot in a movie, or allegedly. Remember the guy killed him, and then he shot the light, and they're like, get the gun, and they got a Manly happen. Wow, what a movie. We're just talking about the classic movie, man. But all right, guys, we got about 10 minutes for wrap up because we don't have a whole lot of time, but although we got a little bit to say our final stuff. Let's talk a little about what's going on in the war between Russia and Ukraine. A lot of people have been waiting for this and they actually want to hear us talk about this. So, yeah, I mean, let's just start with what are you guys' opinions? I mean, what do you guys think about this, first of all? I mean, wow, right?
It's just a crazy time, man. It's like this. I mean, Russia's always been kind of like Putin's always been trying to
very forceful. Very grabby.
Yeah, forceful and always kind of like dipping into Ukraine, man. You know what it is. Like now it's kind of leaning into like obviously what it's led to is a
mini war. Like, not a mini, but somewhat of a European war, which can potentially be a world war. I don't want to call it a world war yet because no one's really like got involved yet. But it's definitely Europe and NATO, and it might
not yet. I mean, exactly. The potential is always there. You know, the potential is always there. Like I said, I was saying earlier how. I think I was telling George earlier today how the similarities between World War II and what's happening right now. Like everybody's sitting here and they're like, I saw this headline yesterday, and the world condemns Putin, and it's like, yeah, well, the world condemned Hitler in 1939 too, but
he's still from doing what he did and killing people.
Yeah,
at what point? At what point are we going to actually physically help instead of just support?
Real quick, right, Dan? Just hold that thought 1 second, bro. I'm sorry to cut you off, but you know what a friend of mine said, by the way? This guy, I just say his name is Leo. Really good guy. We play soccer, and he's got a real estate team, but he also has the guys who are like not calling you up, bro, but guys over 40. Like my father's 66 and he plays with them. So the older guys play soccer and also young guys too, not just older guys. I think I mentioned it to you sometime, Steve. I was hanging out with him the other day because we played indoor. He rented a space because it's it's cold now, so we play indoor soccer and him and friends. When anybody leaves, me and him are talking, and he said, "Dude, I'll tell you what, George, I feel like I could go there right now, man. I wish I would go there." I was like, "Yeah, you're not really Ukrainian." He's like, "Yeah, something about being Ukrainian or Russian, whatever the case may be." He said he's like Italian and Irish and something else. I don't know. He's American, of course. 16 years old. Does the javelin, the discus throw, used to be really good in high school and still trains. I mean, 16 years old and still good shape. And he's a little younger than my father, but kind of up there in the 60s. And he said, it's so hard to watch, man. He said, I mean, it's so like, it's so frustrating and sad to watch, lives being lost and all kinds of lives. Not just, I mean, you might think just Ukrainians, but did you see that? It was African students. It was immigrants. It was Albanian people there. It was Russian people even in Ukraine, Cossacks. It was small groups of minorities. It was like Arabs and like Syrians and even Kurdish people that never even have a chance. It's already fucked up because they're not really from there, so it's obviously going to be a little hard and it could be a little racist and all that. But given what's going on now, they're like the last of the last. I mean, they couldn't get the train, so it's just such a shame what's going on right now. It's affecting everybody.
But some of the stuff that we're seeing, though, I think is really, really heartening.
Yeah, disturbing too.
Look, you look, you got both the Klitschko's and Lomachenko.
Yeah, dude.
And
the guy that beat Joshua, I forgot his name. Oh, something. The heavyweight champion. You're talking about from England?
Yeah. It's basically it's every Ukrainian world class boxer is picked up a rifle now. You have you have the entire Olympic javelin team. Are have volunteered. Miss Ukraine.
Yes, I seen that. That was like,
Yeah.
wow,
Miss
dude.
Ukraine
Inspiring.
has volunteered and
The
picked
women
up
are ready, bro. You
picked up a
see, they're
rifle.
heroines. They're strong women that actually want to go and fight. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's women in the army in Ukraine too, so it's like a lot of them actually fighting. But it's just like it sucks to see people really possibly, I mean, getting killed. They learn how to shoot, bro. Oh, soccer players, bro. They're protesting. FIFA also took over. Well, they banned Russia because what's going on. Which, I mean, I get it. I understand. It's not really the players' fault. It's the fucking government that kills everything. The committees, all the athletic committees. As you know, I run by the government, but it's fucking Putin and this crazy dictator.
I'll tell you this whole thing. Talk about the International Olympic and International Paralympic committees right now. They are really they're shitting the bed. Those organizations, man. I'm done with. I'm seriously done with the Olympics, man. Yeah. Have you heard? Did you hear what the the IPC said the other yesterday and then today?
No. What did they say?
No.
Yesterday they said that they will not ban the Russian and Belarusian athletes, but they can't carry the flag and they have to be under the Olympic banner.
Ridiculous.
And then
This is the circle flag.
Yeah, there was such a big outlash to this outcry that today they reversed the decision and they're sending all Russian and Belarusian athletes home. And it's like, okay, too little, too late, dude.
100%.
Yeah,
Too little, too late. Damage done already. I mean, what are they expecting? I mean, look, and listen, Dan, I'm not opposed to that. I mean, I agree with you saying. I feel bad because, I mean, at the end of the day, unless the some of the athletes got some really shitty ass, views, which I doubt they do. Because, I mean, to be honest, if we want to be fair, right, the Russian people don't want this. The Russian Ukrainians, I mean, the Russian Ukrainian men are like this, bro. They're like brothers. It's like Albania and Kosovo. It's like Ireland and North Ireland, honestly, or Scotland and Ireland, maybe even closer. Not to
and I agree. The majority and probably all the athletes are probably against it.
Yeah.
The thing is,
but still,
the whole charter, the whole basis, part of the whole basis of the Olympics and the Paralympics is peace and unity. It's bringing together, and they actually there's supposed to be a peace clause. Like you're not supposed to be in an act of war and send athletes to the Olympics. That shouldn't be happening. The ancient Olympics with the ancient Greeks. I mean, this is over 1,000 years.
Like over 2,000 years, actually.
Over 1,000 years, and every 4 years, all warfare stopped. All fighting stopped.
Right.
It's
crazy.
That's one of the founding principles of the Olympics. No, it sucks, and I feel bad for these athletes who are getting caught up in this that they have nothing to do with this. But the whole point is, it's like the same with all the sanctions and all the other athletic organizations that are canceling events in Russia. Yes, it's not. This is not the Russian people's fault,
right?
But this is y'all's leader.
Yep.
Y'all have him in charge.
Exactly. So it's at the end of the day, it might even though their hands aren't directly in it, at the end of the day, if you're in the United States and like the president of the United States or the government was doing something like this in the U.S., like you shouldn't.
Oh, they'll hate on us. They would love to hate on us, bro. They'll definitely hate on us.
Yeah.
And I act like the people are okay with it, even though we wouldn't be okay with it. But because the perception is that we're really like arrogant to other countries, Americans are this and that, and like I've been exactly, bro. in other countries, they ask me, so how American people? They call
You
me American
imagine-
boy when I
You
go to
imagine
Albania.
if like he goes like the communist route, bro, like where he tries to turn it into like a dictatorship like North Korea, man. Like,
Well, that's all it is, bro. I mean, he's he's trying to reclaim Russian territory, and that's one of the reasons. And to be fair, it's been going on since like 09, because he tried it in 2014, but not successful. Remember, they tried to go to Crimea. It's all about Crimea. Crimea's in the Russian river now. It's back to Russia now. It's like what? It's fucked up. But Odessa, Odessa is Ukraine.
This is what I was saying to George earlier about like like the similarities and the parallels between World War II and what's happening now. That's these little land grabs, in the name of I'm just bringing it back into the fold.
Well, too bad. It's not how it used to be. Why
Yeah.
why does bring it back? Is England bringing anything back? Is France bringing anything back? Why does Russia got to bring it back?
Then he's using the excuse of he's denazifying Ukraine, and it's like denazifying, like, and it's like, well, okay, except Russia has the largest population of neo-Nazis in the world right now.
yeah.
So I mean,
how's that work?
yeah, like how's this working, man? Like,
it's like, come on.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, Putin. I'm not saying I don't think he's a communist. I don't think he'll try and go back to that.
okay.
But I do think, but that's not the only form of dictatorship out there.
Of course.
No, I mean, this is a guy who came up under the Soviet system.
Yep.
And he wants these. He's already basically said he wants them back. He wants all that land back, all those countries. Yeah. But it could definitely, I could easily see, China getting inspired by this and trying to take Taiwan back, and now we got another axis of evil type of thing.
Exactly.
But they're giving hard. I think China's ready, bro. You know what they said?
That's the dangerous part.
All these Chinese military planes are flying around and these ships around, apparently circling Taiwan. I think China's always kind of like right here, like with the Taiwanese here, they're always around, trying to always figure it out. Russia had the balls to say, we're going to do it, bring World War III back. Putin just gives no shit, bro. He's in a fox. He's just that crazy.
Yeah, so
SOB is a judo black belt too. You believe that shit? He's a judo black, he can box too, and the sambo guy.
Actually, Putin was the honorary president of the International Judo Federation. They just revoked that title from him.
They revoked it, thank God.
And World Taekwondo Federation just revoked his honorary black belt.
Oh, as they should. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anybody should have an honorary black belt to begin with. I think that's one of the stupidest things I ever heard. Honorary black belt.
Exactly.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, I've seen him train, but I mean, I don't know much about it. I do know I always know he's a judo guy. He'll throw dudes and he used to do judo for years.
No, yeah, he's a judo sambo guy, definitely.
And he's a Russian judo guy because Russian judo is a little different. It's more like sambo than regular judo. But yeah, he's a psychotic, bro. But you know what he did, man? He put his ex-wives in a mental institution. That was, I believe, his kid's mother to get a young one. I mean, jeez, the dude just a shitty ass fucking leader. I mean, the Russian people are tired. Can you imagine seeing the same face for 20 years? He's been the president since 2000, 22 years. Can we get another guy here? It's always got to be his guy. Like,
that's how it is. It's not like the U.S., man, where they got those types of 4 to 8 year terms. It ain't like that, or not. It's completely.
Well, on paper it is.
Right,
but
right.
In practice,
paper, but they don't
actually doesn't play out like that.
Yeah, because he's technically, like he's not the president of Russia right now. I don't think I forget. He's the premier, not the president. He was the president. Huh?
Is he a czar again?
No, that's just king.
Yeah.
Just king, czar.
Czar is just a king.
So you have Ivan the Terrible, now you have Putin the Terrible.
Yeah.
You know?
He is.
Hey, bro. I know you know about that because you're big on history, Dan. I'm pretty sure Steve's heard of Ivan the Terrible. Like Ivan the Terrible, like from like the 1500s, like a Russian leader from back then. This guy's way worse than him.
Vladimir the Terrible.
Vladimir the Terrible. Yeah. It's crazy what's going on, man. I mean, honestly, man, I could talk for a lot of people. My heart goes out to the people of Ukraine, those that suffer, but not just Ukrainians. Whether you're Ukrainian American, Ukrainian, European, like myself, a lot of us. American, a guy that just doesn't like the
Yo.
war. I mean, it just allows the cities. In 2022, we got so much more to worry about, and now we got to see a war and rebuild and see a great country
Sure.
Ukraine now go down.
George, quick question: did Bloody lived in Ukraine for a little bit, right?
No, UK.
Right.
Remember?
United Kingdom. Got you. Okay,
Yeah,
Ukraine,
UK,
okay.
United Kingdom. Yeah, so England basically. He lives in London.
Okay.
He's actually in I believe he's in Atlanta right now. He moved to Atlanta because I talked to him about maybe bringing him back and all. But yeah, he lived in Canada a little. He's been around. I don't think he's ever been out there, but I mean, a lot of Albanians have been in the Soviet Union. My grandfather was in the Soviet Union. My great grandfather, like in the early 1900s, and my uncle studied in Stalingrad in the what do you call it, like aviator school. My father's uncle, so my great uncle. So three of my folks, I guess you could say, when they're my grandfather, who I never actually met. I actually have a picture downstairs. It's in 1956, black and white. You can see him and his Russian friends, and behind you have the red square. But back then it was Stalin. It wasn't he wasn't Boris Yeltsin. He wasn't Putin. These guys were probably babies then. In 56, Putin was born in 52, so he's actually like 70 now, but just a bad human being.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's nuts, man. We'll have to talk more about it as it kind of progresses on.
Just at what point do we actually start to help? Like,
Exactly.
you look back, like I said, you look back in like 38, 39, and Germany's going into Poland, and the whole world sitting there doing what we're doing right now.
Very reminiscent, bro.
We support you. We love you. Sending prayers. It's like, okay, then it's not until they cut through Belgium on their way into France that treaties start to be invoked.
Exactly.
And other countries start to come in to help. And it's like at what point, look, I hate war. I hate it. That's the last thing I want.
Right? Who wants war?
Yeah.
This country has been at war more than it hasn't since its inception. We've been at war 220 some years out of 250 some years, something like that. But I'm one of these ones that I desire peace, but I also understand that sometimes the only way to achieve peace is through violence. War is an ugly necessity.
Exactly.
So we've had enough bullshit wars over energy and oil fields and weapons of mass destruction that didn't even
terrorism
there.
Exactly. All these wars we had in the last 15, 20 years. I mean,
we just finally got out of Afghanistan after over 20 years, and the only reason we were there is because a whole nother country bombed us. It wasn't even Afghanistan. They were, had nothing to do with it. It was just an excuse for us to go in. Now we have something that's here's a legitimate reason to send troops into a place, and when are we going to do it?
Exactly. That's the whole thing. It's like
it's like we love to say we support you from afar, but it's like exactly like when is the actual call to action going to happen when we're actually going to support? I was just talking to somebody about this last Friday. Actually, people were saying that they're like, oh yeah, everybody wants to send love and support, but it's like, yeah, when does action actually get taken?
And look, man, not every one of us is able to do something. I mean, I've been hearing about a foreign brigade in Ukraine. I've been hearing about people from America, Canada, UK, Germany, all these other these countries. These are people going over there on their own dime.
Yeah, because
they're flying into Poland and then crossing the border the opposite way from all the refugees.
Right.
But not everybody can do that. I have a friend of mine figured out a way to get people in the Ukraine money directly into their accounts.
Right.
Almost right away. He said, go on to Airbnb. Find a place for rent. research it to make sure it's owned by an individual and not a company. And then once you do, rent the place for a couple days.
Right.
And then just send them a message. Look, I'm not coming. This is for you and your family.
Right.
And that money, that money goes directly into their account. So it's available for them pretty much immediately. He's done this. He did this with a couple people and got some really wonderful replies. These people they're grateful. They're appreciative. Anything that help them. So if you're worried about, giving to an organization and, you're worried about, like how much is actually going to go to the people, this is a way to give to individuals directly and not have, organizations, take the big chunk out of it. I thought that was a really neat idea that he discovered.
Well, no, I hear you, and that's the thing. I mean, it's like every day we're hearing in the news. So a lot of Ukrainians are going to like Poland, Czech Republic, Romania is another country. Maybe I don't know. Maybe possibly down by Turkey, but definitely Germany. Open the borders. Sweden, Finland. The Finnish, Finland is ready for Russia because they know better, bro. But it's the thing. The Russians are always trying to take over lands don't belong to NATO, but they're so big and strong, and they should care about NATO. Clearly, Russia fears NATO. I mean, let's be real about this. Just like NATO fears Russia a little bit, and it's not fear. It's almost like again, let's go back to MMA and boxing. When two good opponents want to fight each other, they both respect each other's skill. They know it could be either or, and it's just one of those things. Now we're talking about opponents, the NATO and USA. Russia has always been our biggest arch nemesis, man. Since we can probably mean before you were born, since you were a kid, Dan. I mean, it's always been.
Before that, I mean, it goes all the way back to just after World War II.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't trust them. We were allies with them in World War II, only for the simple fact that the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Exactly.
People today forget that that Stalin and Hitler had a treaty. There's photographs of Nazi Nazi soldiers and Soviet soldiers hanging out, partying, smoking cigarettes, and laughing together. Yeah, Stalin and Hitler were bedfellows.
By the way, who was not Russian, was Georgian. Stalin was not Russian, guys. If you didn't know about it, he was Georgian.
Yeah, Stalin was Georgian.
Which is
that wasn't even his name.
It's a country underneath of it, but
yeah, that wasn't even his name. It was his nickname, Stalin, Man of Steel.
Rastavili, because Vili is all like if you see Rastavili is definitely Georgian.
Yeah, but so they were. Like I said, they had a treaty. They were bedfellows, and it wasn't until Hitler double-crossed Stalin and invaded Russia that we had already been having a lack of trust between the U.S. and Russia before this. The U.S. Once the Russian Revolution happened, U.S. got real scared real fast.
Yep.
So it was we were only allies with them out of necessity. So like the distrust between our two countries goes all the way back to the 1940s. Like talking 80 years of mistrust and hatred.
Yeah, rivalry, sports, politics, sciences. I mean, war, events, history. Oh, I mean, it's always been, and not just the movies like Rocky IV, huh?
The space race,
space race, the race to the moon, and all that. Right.
The race
Red
to
Dawn,
the moon.
Rocky IV. I mean, I can think of a lot of the movies. I mean, it's always pitted USA versus Russia. I believe, wasn't it? The 1972 Olympics when they beat us by like 3 seconds in basketball. I mean, those that remember.
1980 Olympics when we beat them in hockey.
In hockey, yeah, those 1980. I'm not saying the Mighty Ducks, but I said the Mighty Ducks.
The Miracle Game, I remember
about that.
That's actually the first. That's my earliest Olympic memory was watching that game.
Interesting. Wow. Very cool.
That's my
1980.
earliest Olympic memory was watching USA
Either me or
beat,
you were born, Steve.
and I remember because it was right after um, the Red Army team came to Philly and played the Flyers in an exhibition game, and the Flyers wound up physically beating up the Russians so bad
Yeah.
that the Russians walked off. Well,
The
the
goons,
Russians
the
started
enforcers.
cheating. Yeah, the Russians started cheating. They started tripping and high sticking and stuff like that. And this is
Of
the
course.
Broad Street Bullies. They got sick of it, so they started fighting
This is
back.
Philly,
And
dude.
they beat them up so bad they walked off the ice and refused to come back. And then you had the miracle game of 1980 where we beat them in ice hockey in the Olympics. A bunch of college kids beat the Red Army in ice hockey, man. That was, dude. If you haven't seen that movie, that's a great movie to watch.
I gotta watch it, dude. When it comes
Miracle.
to Olympics,
Oh yeah, I've seen Miracle. George, have you ever seen it, Miracle?
you know what, dude? I know you're talking about. I don't think if I seen some small piece of. I never seen the whole thing, but I know you're talking about though.
Everybody in that movie was cast perfectly, man.
Yeah, they definitely were. Remember when he's making them do suicides? He's like, again, he keeps doing the whistle.
Again. And it's funny because that's my wrestling background. That's the term I heard the most. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again.
Repetition makes perfect.
You don't do it. You don't do the exercise so many times and then stop and ask, "What next?" You keep doing it till you're told what next.
Yeah.
I love that movie, man.
Dude, it's such a classic, man. You know what, man? You're gonna make me rewatch it now. I might pop it on later.
We have a comment, guys. I'm not sure who it is. Maybe Steve can help me. USA's dominated Russia in the Summer Olympic Games since 2004.
Yeah, for the most part, pretty much. I mean, some sports it's been longer than that. I mean, they've always been the rivalry between us. I mean, we're the two main superpowers. Naturally, it's going to, that's going to happen. I
mean, depending on the sports, but if you're talking about running, basketball, they're good at that.
Yeah, and that's my buddy. That's my buddy.
Boxing, both countries. I mean, obviously we're good at boxing. So are they, though.
Yeah,
I would say like Canada and Finland also come to mind when it comes to Iceland. When it comes to actually great hockey teams, USA, Canada, Finland, Russia, Iceland, and even possibly like Norway. Maybe I'm not sure how like Scotland and Ireland are, but like Czech Republic is good.
Yeah. The top three are always usually Canada, US, and Russia are definitely always usually the top three in terms of hockey.
I don't know if you watched any of the hockey in this Winter Olympics.
A little bit.
Especially the women's hockey.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, it was great for us, embarrassing for a lot of the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Especially Russia. Their women's hockey team this year was just like, it was embarrassing. I watched the one match between them and USA. It was just embarrassing, man. Like, holy crap.
Yeah. It's like what has happened to the quality of the competition, right? It's just like it's because Russia's always good. I mean, look who's a Russian hockey player, Alexander Ovechkin. He honestly could go down as like, even though Gretzky obviously has all the points in terms of like assist.
Don't get me started on Gretzky, man. Don't get me started on Gretzky. I got unfavorable opinions about that guy. I give credit where credit's due.
Exactly.
I will give credit where credit is due. And he was great for the style of hockey they played.
Right.
Yeah. But, these people that sit there and call Gretzky the greatest all-around hockey player, no. There were definite aspects of the game that Gretzky just could not do.
Yeah. 100%. I was going to say, and I think Ovechkin's actually going to beat him in terms of goals. I really do. I think he's going to outscore him before he's done.
Wouldn't be surprised. Wouldn't surprise me. I tell you, I love talking about hockey. I love talking about the Detroit Red Wings of the 90s.
Right.
You want to talk about a dynasty, and I've been saying this about different sports teams. Every time I hear the Eagles Sixers or whoever, when it comes to like drafting and stuff like that. And it's like, man, go back and look at what Detroit did in the 90s with the Red Wings. They axed the entire team except for the like three most experienced players. They go to Russia and they hire all these young kids right out of school, bring them over. Yeah, we understand. We're going to get our asses kicked for a year, like 2 or 3 years. But from that point on, after they learned to mesh and become a unit, they were unstoppable.
Ridiculous, yeah.
Freaking stoppable, man. Just like it was ridiculous. It was one of the most brilliant things you ever saw in a sports team do.
Yeah. Like unbelievable. It's like
hockey playing days.
A mark on history. It's just crazy.
It was like the money ball in baseball.
Yeah.
You know, you hit that formula and it just the right formula and everything clicked. And the Chicago Bulls, another dynasty. Like they just had it, man. Like
even in terms of like recent basketball, I guess you could somewhat consider Golden State Warriors. Well, they didn't have as many wins as Chicago, but Chicago was 6. Yeah, it's just finding that formula. Look at the Yankees.
Yeah, it's about like chemistry and fighting. It's like the formula and always kind of stay consistent too. And obviously with injuries and people coming and going, but hockey's also more demanding than basketball. Because, I mean, you do have sticks, you can really get hurt a little more nice. I mean, basketball's tough and football as well, but I mean, hockey's a different type of animal in its own. I mean, I played hockey, but not ice hockey, so it's a little different. But
100%.
yeah, I play more like foot hockey and more like roller skates, but rollerblade.
Definitely.
But yeah, man, definitely. I mean, the whole Russia USA thing has always been very big on hockey, especially in terms of sports. But just it's like they always want to do anything better than us. It's always like I don't know. I guess it's the East versus the West. There's always been this Russia USA thing, and of course USA and China too. We've been rivals, but Russia seems a little different because I mean we had the Cold War with them. With China, we never really had a war as far as I know. So more like a.
Well, you have to. I mean, our beef with our thing with China that goes back to World War II.
Of course.
After China defeated Japan, after Japan was expelled from China at the end of the war, end of World War II, Japan loses the war. They're expelled from China. You had two competing factions for power in China. You had you had Mao Zedong and the communists, and you had what's his name, the nationalists. My mind just went blank.
The Chinese party?
No, you had the communists and the nationalists, and the communists won. We backed the nationalists in that fight. We were not fighting China, but we supplied weapons and money to the
against
people,
the nationalists.
To the nationalists at the
Are you
communists.
talking about 1949, bro, or nah?
Yeah.
That was because that's when like China had the little straight in 49. I remember that. I heard
when
about that.
Taiwan comes into existence. Because it was the communists defeated the nationalists. The nationalists were sent into exile, and they went to Taiwan and set up a government in Taiwan.
Right.
Taipei is the capital of Taiwan. Very good place Taiwan is, man. But knowing the Russians, man, can't trust the Russians. They're all over, and the Chinese too. China is enough in a mission, and people take over the world. But they said Turkey could be involved, and Turkey will be on our side because the Turkish army is 1 million people, right? And it's a huge army. They're very disciplined. Also, the Russians. And look at Turkey between China, Asia, and East Asia, Central Asia, and Europe. So it's kind of a getaway. But then again, I remember back in the day we were really not us per se, America. We kind of judged them a little bit. Turkey was like they had to abolish the death penalty to go to NATO, and they didn't want to do with it because they're very, very old school there. So Turkey's another country with a lot of complicated politics, but they could be a resource. They could definitely be on our side against the Russians, in the Ukraine thing, and against the Chinese. Also, those of might not know there was something called the Russo-Turkish War of like the 1800s, right, Dan? You know about that, Dan? Right? Yeah. So,
well, I'll tell you, if you see China get emboldened and try to take Taiwan, you'll see, so you're going to have Russia. You see Russia and China coming together. I mean, North Korea is not that far behind.
Talk about World War III, bro. Oh, great, man. That'll be crazy
You
as shit,
know,
man. That shit
and
happens.
you know, you look at like World War II. It was Germany, Italy, Japan.
Yeah.
You know, like that
That's
doesn't
simple.
take much. It doesn't take much.
To start a whole world war.
Yeah, especially when one of those, you know, when two of the countries involved are two of the largest landmass nations in the world.
Exactly. And they're superpowers. And they're both just, I mean, crazy armies. I mean, you know what I'm saying? They're
Mhm.
greed for power. They're known to do that. I mean, the Chinese do the Chinese. I mean, they're vicious in China. I think Russia's bad. China's even worse, in my opinion. Well, they're still communist. See, Russia's not communist, but they follow some of the old ways, it seems like.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I mean, you get this thing, you know, people, oh, they're communist, 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 and it's like,
You don't
well,
even know the difference.
can anybody truly point to an actual communist country? I mean, honestly, no. None of them were, you know, because
They just like to throw the term around.
exactly, you know, and that's both sides. And that's not just us. It's those. It was the Soviet Union and China. They love to throw that word around themselves.
Yeah.
You know, but they were never truly communist. They didn't uphold this communist ideology. Like it just they didn't. They weren't. We're more capitalist than they were ever communist. You know?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it,
Yeah.
China. Or talking about Russia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
I
said
mean,
we're more capitalist than they've ever been communists. It's like,
That's
yeah.
no, that's true. That's true. But wasn't so
Yeah,
Lenin, right? Some people like to kind of bullshit around Lenin-esque. This is bullshit. Lenin, wasn't it Lenin the one of the like the father of modern communism? Is the one that kind of started, but he wasn't necessarily a
No,
bad
he was
man.
the father. He was the father of the Soviet Union, of the
Soviet-
USSR.
USSR, so Union,
Yeah.
correct.
The man who we call the father of communism actually wasn't Karl Marx. Karl Marx did not invent communism. Communism existed for a long time before Marx.
He would just kind of get the credit. It seems like
Well, it was
Karl Marx.
Marxist communism.
Marxism.
exactly.
Yeah, so we call it Marxism. And Lenin didn't even uphold Marxism. You know, he actually had his own thing. You would refer to that as Leninism. You know, and then Stalin was Stalinism because he did something different from Lenin. You know, like yeah, you know,
Leninism,
there's
Stalinism,
Maoism. You know, like Ho Chi Minh, like you know,
Hitlerism.
well,
Putinism.
Nazism.
Well, Nazism, yeah, those are Nazis. The
Yeah.
Nazi.
But
Yeah.
there was never a truly communist country ever in the world, because the main objective of communism was not meant to be the end goal. Communism was the method of achieving the end goal. The end goal being, honestly, the end goal was anarchy. In communism, the end goal is anarchy, the obliteration of the state.
Yeah.
Okay,
Anarchy. It is an anarchy.
that was never in the cards for Russia, for the Soviet Union. They were never going to give up power. They were never going to give up their government and their statehood.
And
That
how I
was
get it.
never an option.
They're a big country for a reason, bro. They'd be taking over countries. What do you think their biggest? I mean, it's over Siberia, which is half the world.
Yeah.
It seems like. It's
Yeah,
huge.
you know, when you actually break down the actual philosophy and ideology of these things, you know, like I said, communism is not an end goal. Communism is the method of achieving the end goal. The end goal being anarchy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah, there was never communism in the world.
It was something else. I mean, it was something.
Yeah,
I guess
it was something else completely.
different. There was small differences. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, Soviet Russia actually probably had more in common with Nazi Germany in a lot of aspects.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I would say so. I always said that. But funny thing is that the Russians didn't like the USSR. Didn't like the communists. The Russians. You know, the Nazis were against homosexuals, Jews, Slavic people. If you're a middle color, they were against everything.
That, I mean, we're talking about like on the economic sense, in the economic sense, where
economic terms.
you know, fascism, fascism really is economically, it's the state controls the method of production and sale or distribution.
Right.
Okay. Socialism is when society as a whole controls the method of production and distribution. Capitalism is when the capitalist controls the method of production and distribution. Fascism, Nazi Germany was very anti-capitalist. They didn't want individuals owning companies. They wanted the state to own.
Yeah, I read about that in history books too back in the day.
Yeah,
it was
a
all
lot
about
of
the
those
state.
companies still exist. And that's the thing. A lot of these companies still exist today.
Which is ironic because Germany is more like a capitalist country these days, more than anything.
Today it is. Yeah, today Germany is a Western liberal capitalist.
Yeah, right. More society, more like similar to like democracy and all that. Not so much like
about a good blend. It's a good blend of socialism and capitalism.
Yes, and Germany is definitely one of the most wealthy countries in the world. I mean, Europe is. By the way, guys, real quick, I know you're German. You're a little German, Dane. You're a little. Steve's a little German too, or half German. Germany's such a clean country. When I was young, coming to America, bro, they'll be like, America's so clean, it's so nice. And there's parts of it is. In Germany, they say you don't see a cigarette butt on the floor. It's very, 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 it's very clean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a lot of that, and that actually, you talk about smoking in Germany, and, Nazi Germany was the first country in the world to fight cigarettes use on the grounds of health.
I see.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that. Learn something every day. I didn't know.
Yeah. A lot of the things that a lot of the information about cigarette smoke and how dangerous it is to the human body, the Nazis figured out back in the 30s.
Wow. I mean, the Nazis were always really smart, man. We got to give credit's due, though. I don't like the Nazis, but unfortunately, I mean, they had so many things, inventions came out during their scientists.
In some ways, they were brilliant, but in some ways, they were just
fucked up,
freaking stupid.
Yeah,
right.
What do they call it? The where they study the lumps of the skull, or the shape of the head. The shape of the head is supposed to somehow determine your intelligence level. That's just retarded, man.
Yeah, I heard about that. How true is that, dude?
This is beyond idiotic. That's like basing your foreign policy, your government's foreign policy on astrology.
It's like trying to say exactly. It's like trying to say like the color of your skin like determines how educated you are.
Right? Yeah, or if you have long fingers, the size of your hands, or some shit.
Yeah. So it's like they were so, when it came to health and fitness, the Nazis were on another level. When it came to like medical science and like stuff, aspects of science like that, man, it's like their brains just collectively.
Wow, you're like, whoa, what did they talk about?
Yes,
Well, because they always remember that Hitler was able to manipulate everybody, saying that we're the descendants of Aryans and these big strong guys and their superior race. The Aryans were in India; they weren't even white actually, but he was able to trick.
The Aryan wasn't even an ethnicity. It's a language group.
Right.
Yeah. So like Aryans, that's something from so far back before there was even ethnic division.
Yeah, we're talking about 1500 AD.
Yeah, AD. BC. Yeah.
Oh, BC then. Okay, well, we're talking about way before then.
Yes, that's how far back we're talking
thousands of years. What the fuck were they talking about?
Thousands of years for the Aryans.
So he lied. He just got that name to kind of
They completely made crap up, man. Yeah, they appropriated symbols and bastardized them. And
propaganda too was going on then.
Yeah, oh man, it was crazy, But yeah, so like I was saying, a lot of those companies in Nazi Germany, they still exist today.
Right.
Volkswagen. Volkswagen was created by the Nazis. That was the Volkswagen Beetle was actually designed by Hitler.
Wow. Oh yeah.
Crazy. History lessons right here, guys. Whoever's watching, pay attention.
You know who
guys.
designed the Nazi uniforms?
Who's that?
Hugo Boss.
Wow. We'll see. You learn something new every day because I did not know that.
Look at that. What are the comments, guys? Come on, you guys, stop. Stop leaving the show. I know we're about to close.
This is a funny one that actually blows people away. Fanta soda.
Yeah.
The Coca-Cola plants in Germany, when the U.S. declared war on Germany in World War II, the Coca-Cola plant in Germany lost contact with the U.S., so they couldn't receive any shipments of ingredients.
Okay.
So they restructured, created new flavors, and this new name, Fanta. And boom. And so, after the war, Coca-Cola took back over the plant and acquired the Fanta name. They discontinued it for a number of years, but there was a big enough fan base that there was a demand there for it that they brought back the Fanta soda. And Fanta was a Nazi creation. I mean, these are products. These are things that don't hold ideologies. They're inanimate objects.
Right, obviously.
I mean, and I make jokes. I'm a human being. I make jokes. I tell my parents. My parents own a VW. I call it their little Nazi mobile. But then, it's a joke. Whatever. But a lot of these companies, they still exist today. Yeah. The father of the American space program was Werner Braun. He was a Nazi scientist. He was the scientist behind the V2 and V3 bombs.
Yeah.
He's the one who put us on the moon.
And this is obviously after World War II and all that. It just seems like a correlation between the 30s and 40s, bro. People don't talk about it. It definitely was kind of somewhat part of the industrial age, maybe the second wave. But between the 40s, let's just say late 30s, when the war started, till about the early 50s, mid 50s, the inventions went up the roof. And from what I know, a lot of tanks were taken from Germany to America. I mean, after we defeated them, we took a lot of their stuff. I mean, not to mention some of the criminals were pardoned.
They invented the tank technology. They invented it. The B-2 stealth bomber, the Uniwing design,
right,
comes from Nazi Germany.
Wow.
I mean, their scientists. Their scientists were like beyond. There was the race for the atomic bomb, and it was a three-way race for the atomic bomb between America, Russia, and Germany.
Right.
Germany lost the war. Half of their scientists came to the U.S. The other half went to Russia.
You see?
All
the Cold War really was a continuation of the war, but between the people that won it. Like USA and Russia were allies for a little bit. Then it's like, okay, now we're going to have this little private secret war between who got better technology, who can do this, which is hence the Cold War. I mean, you know about this, Dan, but it's just like, it really seems like it kind of was a continuation. Because I remember even then, it was always conflict. I mean, it's always been.
Growing up in the middle, in the Cold War was, it's crazy when you look back at it today. Like some of the young guys, kids today, like my daughter, she'll never understand what it was like growing up during that era. I saw somebody posted a meme yesterday. I just saw this meme. It said Gen X bomb shelter, and it was a school desk.
Oh, Gen X, Generation X, right.
Yeah, I'm Gen X, man. We grew up with that looming threat of nuclear annihilation. That was an everyday thing for us back then.
It seems like it's going on again, bro. In the last, even us, kind of somewhat always hearing rumors. Oh, I read mass destruction weapons. When me and Steve were like in high school at the time, I guess. Later
Well, I
on,
think,
always this and that.
you know what?
The Russians, the Chinese, the Koreans.
The correlation I see today is with the bomb drills that we had. The correlation would be the school shooter drills that the kids have today.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there wasn't school shooters like in your time then. I don't think I ever heard of any. That's crazy.
I mean, they existed. I got into this debate with somebody about the whole thing. I remember about school shootings and gun rights and gun laws and everything. And their whole argument was that, about school shootings being a modern phenomenon.
Mm.
And I went and looked it up, and it turns out, the first school shooting was in like the 1830s.
Oh, the first school shooting.
Yeah. People have been shooting schools since the mid 1800s in this country. It's just, when your firepower is one shot per, like shoot, reload, school shootings weren't as big of a thing.
Right.
I think in the modern day, in the modern era, we trace it back to, I believe it was the University of Texas or Texas State University, San Antonio, I believe. I think it was. Well, it was. You had a guy snap and took a sniper rifle up to the top of the watchtower in the center of the university of the campus, and he just picking people off.
Crazy.
What was this at? Crazy.
Texas, back in the early 80s, late 70s or early 80s.
You got to dig up a lot of these old stories because I mean I'm sure it still happens there. But somebody say yep. Hold on a second, guys. We got some. Hold on.
1966.
We only have 5
1st.
minutes left, but we can kind of finish off strong. We got somebody say yep to what you said earlier, and somebody said 1966 August 1st.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. We traced that to that's what we traced the first modern school shooting. And it just gets worse from that point. Really starts picking up frequency after the millennium in the early 2000s. You really start to see the frequency pick up, higher caliber guns, semi-automatic, the ability to take out more people and cause more destruction. It's a tough subject. You can't. This is. I mean, this is an episode unto itself. This subject right here. This is an episode just because like you have to get into the whole thing about that. Not just gun laws, but you got to look at the history of gun culture in America.
Yes.
Why do Americans have this fascination with a gun? I read a letter from a British aristocrat who was touring the colonies in the 1760s. And he comments about how, any freedman with an acre of land and a rifle thinks that they're my equal. And he couldn't get over this. He was flabbergasted. Like, he was blown away. Like, you got an acre of land and a gun, and you think you're the equal of somebody who comes from aristocracy with a long line that can trace my lineage back generations, aristocratic and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's how it was in America back then.
Damn.
The gun culture in America goes that far back before America existed.
Right.
That's crazy. Yeah, I'm not surprised. We had muskets back then. The muskets.
Yeah.
So it's something that's so ingrained and so entrenched in American culture.
Yeah.
Like it's such an in-depth, emotional, touchy subject.
We could do a whole episode on this.
I think we should. I think we should definitely do it for.
You're going to be pissing people off on both sides of the debate.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
we bet.
Yeah,
Thank you for watching here.
you know. But the thing is, again, like we were talking about with Cain Velasquez, you know, in the meantime, kids are dying, kids are getting hurt,
Of course.
and what can we do to stop that from happening? That's the thing we got to really get to the bottom of. Is how can we stop these kids from getting hurt?
Dude, having guns is like a phenomenon. People just love, in other countries love them too. It's something about just having the gun. Like a gun need for protection. What if you live in the middle of Wisconsin? What you need against a polar bear, against a big grizzly bear? What protection you need up there? Well, I need for these. I want to be a hunter. If you want to be a hunter, go ahead. I mean, I get it. People like guns, I like them too, but it should be more than human lives, man. But like I said, we definitely got to think about possibly another episode. We can talk about gun laws or just guns.
Yeah.
I mean, I like guns too, and I'll own a gun, but I don't need 100 guns. I mean, you know. But
I'll say this. I'll say one thing about the whole thing. When it comes to people's rights, everybody likes to talk about my rights this, my rights that. I have this right, I have that right.
We got 3 minutes, guys. 3 minutes to slow you know.
I think everybody needs to remember one thing when you're talking about rights is your rights end at the tip of somebody else's nose.
Exactly.
So in the process of you exercising your freedom and your rights, if that violates the freedom or rights of another person, you no longer have that right. I think people need to remember that. As a society, you have to remember, your rights cannot infringe upon somebody else's rights.
Food for thought, man. Food for thought. That's so true, though. But people ain't trying to hear that, though. But it's food for thought.
Yeah, so I'll leave it at that.
No problem, man. Yeah, guys, definitely got to leave it at that. This is one of the longest podcasts we've ever done. Maybe the longest ever. We went a little past.
It's one of them. Yeah.
One of them, but it was
a good one, man. We had a lot of good conversation, like in the comments and then on here as well, man.
It's definitely one of the most popular ones, guys. I don't know if you guys be watching, but back and forth at one point, like 8 people are watching and 10 people, the people coming back and forth. I can see right here. So it's going to be interesting to watch the analytics. But like Steve said, there's a lot of comments.
I had people texting me too, like they were tuning in and stuff, and they were saying like
even late. Episode. See, when you go longer, they come in a little later. So guys, if you came in late, we still appreciate you watching. And of course, also you can go watch it tomorrow and hear everything. I know it's a little longer, but if you're bored, not doing anything, you can give us a watch. And
quick thank you to like the people who commented in too. So we had Eli, we had
people to watch from the beginning.
My buddy Joe Roman, Todd Gardner. Nate actually tuned in too and commented.
Nate, somebody else, right? Did
we had who else do we have in here? We had
Selena.
Yeah, there were a few people. Oh, and Frank commented in too. Frank was the one who talked about Marciano and Frazier and all that. He was the one who commented. I know Frank's a big he's a big on fighting thing. So like
Frank. Frank was a cop. Yeah, boy Frank. Yep.
Yeah. So
shout out to Frank.
I tell you, Lamada, Marciano, there's some great names, man.
Definitely are, dude. He knows his stuff.
Some greats out there, man.
No doubt, man. Oh yeah, one more thing. We also want to give a quick because I know we kind of like slowly gotta go in a few. Want to give a quick shout out to our boy Bob Carson. Dan knows Bob as well. He's one of our friends as well because he came last week and he's also he was an alumni, so he's actually like a repeat. Came back. The first episode Steve wasn't there, so this one was all 3 of us. So that was a good last episode. If you guys haven't watched episode 71 or 70, some of the more recent ones, please check them out as well as 69 with some very good topics. And this is 72, guys. It's been a pleasure. Dan, thank you so much, man. We appreciate your input, your honesty, your facts. I mean, it's hard to get things that are true, but also like the facts the right way because people say things and they're misinformation. You said it really well, man. We appreciate all the, again, your knowledge, your perspective of things and some of the research and all that. We did some stuff as well for this, some research, but it was very good topics and a very open-ended conversation, very well done, I think. So, good podcast, guys. And I hope you guys watching were somewhat enlightened or a little bit. You watched a few things that you might have learned a few things. Me and Steve learned some stuff today. So,
well, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I had a blast, man. It's always a fun time.
Definitely. One more thing, guys, real quick. My bad, Steve. Also, don't forget, guys, check out our content. We're on IG. We're on Facebook. Most of the guys that follow us here already know where we are. They watch everything. Also, check out the website, which Steve has made the website. And also, remember, always to like, subscribe, hit the bell, hit the notification button, and also, comment if you get a chance. And go ahead, Steve. What were you going to say?
Absolutely. I was going to say, Dan, we always appreciate you having you on, man.
We got to bring you again.
You always bring some great insight to the podcast, man. And a lot of people appreciate like the episodes, like the one that we were on last year. I know a lot of people tuned in and told me it was a good episode. I know a lot of people tonight were commenting in, man.
Yeah, well, those old Navy stories are always a good time.
Yeah,
man. Appreciate you.
So definitely, guys. Well, guys, it's been real, man. We covered a lot of topics. We'll definitely do it again. Dan, you're becoming like a regular here, so obviously, they know
I'm
behind the
always
scenes, behind the scenes.
available
We'll
for
talk
you.
more. We'll bring you back. We'll have fun with it. Tune in, guys, for next episode, for episode 73. We will have a guest. Me and Steve will bring something good to you guys. Then you pretty much get tagged on a regular, but default now you and like maybe 30, 40 other people, and me and Steve, including there. And obviously, even our boy here, LEZ, so Elijah, who's one of our Pancras guys and one of our pro wrestlers fighters. He's a great guy, guys. Dan knows him, Steve knows him from here, and he's always watching. So we appreciate you, Todd, and Nate, everybody,
Frank,
everybody, and good stuff, guys. Good work, gentlemen. I had fun. It was good.
Always a good time. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So, gentlemen, have a great weekend.
All right,
have a
guys.
great night. And, guys, we'll see you back for next episode 73 next week.
Have a great weekend,
Have a good night,
guys.
guys.
Good night. Later. Peace.
Yeah.